Hello, Raiders. I'm not ready, but give me a second. I still have to do an announcement. Ugh, it takes forever for me. But Eros. Bodies and maintenance, dude. I clicked on the shop and it was over. And then I looked at Unk's stream and I was like, ha. Okay, it's not just me. Good Orming. Hello, Balmandra. So I was gonna play some shit, but okay. Well, what are the links? Okay, so we got. Okay, we'll just put this Billy. While I do the announcement. All right, what am I looking at? Oh, excellent. Always good things happening when I see Assault Mode engine. Oh, okay, Starham, never mind. I take it back. I take it back. All right. I can't let you get close. Dude, he sounds weird. I can't believe that's not dubbed. Okay, I don't recognize that field spell. Is that like the Sacred Beast one? Like Fallen Paradise? I have 90 Dominant Spark. Nice. Alt art? Yeah, I got to see. I saw that. When did we get a Mourner alt art? Is that new? If I missed that, I'm so mad. Oh, is it the Call of Haunted one? Ah, I see. Okay. Oh, thank you for the 90 stream streak, Mom Andre, and thank you for the 5 stream streak, Never. I still haven't done my... Okay, Rex Tremendous. Labubu. I think Mourners do. Okay, that's good. Okay, like, there's no way no way Konami forgot DDoS. Yeah, I'm gonna blame Wooly on that one. Arya's still second. Was still second on Raiden. Nice. Okay, yeah. 3 Call of the Haunted. Oh, this is so fucked up. Fuck off. XDD. Call of the Haunted. XDD. What is this? Oh yeah, I didn't get into Fusion Cup. XDD, steal your monster. This is insane. I hate this. This song choice is so good. Yeah, this is vile. I can't believe I saw that. I witnessed this. Why is he not making Fortress Dragon? True. Alright, well, thank you, Genmu, for that one. There's the Walter Jewell one. I could look at that one. Even though I've already seen it, but... Yeah, this is like the 3rd time we got emergency maintenance. He specializes in NTR? That's awesome. Why is he a Tacoma? This is just Walter Jewell, but he's like very young.
How's it going, everybody? It is Jaku, and
okay, when I saw this and his outfit, I'm not gonna say anything. When I saw this, I got what's the word? One-shotted by his appearance. And this isn't like a bad thing at all. I'm not like saying anything negative about his appearance. But I don't want to elaborate on it though.
got my friend Walter here. He just
say it.
Back from YCS Tacoma, where he finished top 16, right?
Okay, what I'm gonna say is if I find my high school photos, which don't really exist, this was what basically the hair's oh my god. No. Was one-shotted. This is what I looked like in high school, basically.
Yeah, how was it? How was the whole thing?
It was pretty crazy. You can tell that everybody was kind of across when you guys see that. It kind of reminded me
We got Labubu in the pack. Nice. Which one? Like alt art? Exposed? Yeah, I'm Alter Jewel, guys.
For day 1 on Swiss, you actually ended up finishing with what was it, like X2 record or like
Oh, I haven't done the stupid announcement.
Because you were like tied for first place with another 2 people.
Yeah, oh no, I mean for Swiss it was 10 rounds. It was 9-1. They won, I think, 7-1.
Okay, cool. Well, anyways, you want to go ahead and get right into
The Link 2 Fairy support. Oh, that one. Oh, that's not cool.
3 and a core, 3 Valkyries, This is the best friend.
Oh, Lamamu or whatever.
Makes it like so good. Because that means bringing this can't kill you with monsters. They have to try to kill you with traps. They're not gonna LTK you through blockers. It's just like so scary.
Yeah, basically.
And it does so much in the mirror match. It lets you clear your field, so you don't get Trish left, and well, it prevents from dying. This is like the best part. Also, 2900 is ridiculous attack since it runs over all the clipboards.
Nutcross, yeah.
That's funny.
Then only one
Colossus,
yeah.
one Gungnir, and one Trishula.
Colossus, since all the mirrors have their effects that you banish from the graveyard and you get to search another one, you only really want to see one or maybe two mirrors at the beginning, and after that you can search the rest of them. So one Colossus is just a part of the unit, so you can so Brownic and Persian effects can give you access to the mirrors. Other than that, I never really missed a second Colossus. I think once enough. I never really want to draw like too many mirrors too. Trishula is just one of its enough. Its discard effect is really good, and obviously its banishing effect is really good, but everybody always plays around it. So you when you want it, you can just search
Nutcross, okay.
Gungnir, except I almost never want to summon Gungnir unlike Trishula, and I almost never want to draw him either, so I've considered dropping him, but its protection effect is probably the most relevant one, and also
Was legit? Yeah, this is probably the beginning of Necros format. Yeah, we're probably gonna see Jin. I don't know if we'll see Bullblader. What are the other glorp shit Jin outs that you had to play? Book of Eclipse. There was also MST too, but you played that for like Cleefort. But it was bad into the mirror, so there was like that weird concession you had to think about. It was a pretty interesting format for if you played Necros. Well, okay, I mean, there's a lot of weird things going on because of Jin. There's another warrior you played. Yeah, it was Bullblader. Bullblader's the one I remember. Exiled Force. Oh, okay.
on your first turn, and having like a hand of Necros is really good because you can use the effect to pop scout, or you can at the end you can pop their set cards just to try to kill as many traps as you can as possible. Because against Clipboard, the traps is what kills you. The monster just tanks.
I've seen people summon this turn 1, and it's like so fucked with the Gungnir.
Because these monsters are a lot better than Clipboards.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, also play Yumanju, Senju. It's just really good. You almost always want to open up one of these guys because if you open any of these and any way to search either Ritual Spell or Unicorn, you open up with the Gen Lock. So when you start off with your opponent on special summoning,
I haven't even done the announcement yet. I'm so fucking distracted.
And one sorcerer. Well, the two Shrits, it's really good. Obviously, because it just lets you tribute summon and it lets you search. It kind of reminds me of Atlantic Dragoons back in normal format because you use it as a cost and it just busts you back. But a lot of people like playing 3. I think 3 is too much because it's like a combo card. It doesn't do anything by itself, and it makes your good hands better and your bad hands worse. And same with sorcerer. But this was kind of like my last minute inclusion. I was playing 40 cards and this was my 41st card. I didn't want to go over 40 because I felt like when I power triple, if my opponent counted 40, they would know that I'm playing Necros immediately. But I just threw it in anyways because I figured I liked it.
Everybody was on Lance? Yeah, there were a few people on Lance because of that, actually, because of Book of Eclipse. It was a weird dynamic because of the way, because you had to beat Jin. But yes, there were actually some people on Lance. Yeah, Chalice is something else. Chalice doesn't work because it only negates effects. But I guess you mean Dress.
Which let you make Abyss Dweller against Burning Abyss a lot more easily, and it also makes the Gen Lock more consistent if you don't draw one of the low force. And it's really good in the mirror match because when you tribute it to someone like something like Valkyries, you can search another spellcaster like Unicorn or another Valkyries, and like I said, Valkyries is what wins you in mirror matches, and when it's banished for like a mirror, it lets you dump like Necros in the graveyard, which can be like Shrek. And then when the Gen Lock is just ridiculous. Yeah, it makes them unfortunate because the mirror match should be really skilled, but this card just kind of like destroys that. It's like, Maxi, this was for the mirror match and for Burning Abyss. Yeah, it's just Maxi is really good. It helps you dig in your deck, and I see that's an to the Gen Lock too because if you Maxi them when they start it, they have to give you. They make you draw 3 cards, so you start at a plus, and you start.
Maxi, let's go.
Cards, and then you draw per turn. You should that will make you draw into an to the Gen Lock, even if it's not that turn. Maybe you stall for like 1 more turn or like 2 turns, then that should give you the to the Gen Lock. And then if it doesn't happen, then it didn't happen. Then I play 2 of each mirror. A lot of people play 3 Necros mirror, 2 cycle, and 2 kaleidoscope, but I like the 2/2/2.
It feels more balanced for you that way?
Yeah, and like I said, you don't really want to open 3 mirrors.
Okay,
so
finally.
You want to play 7, and a lot of people just play 1 cycle and they play 3.
I finally did the announcement. I mean, I feel like if you were going to show up on Discord, you were showing up already.
They have to main crush the monsters because if they main crush the mirrors, they'll get the and if you get cycle, they can't even main crush the monsters because you get someone from the graveyard after you discard it. Also, it's just really good in the late game, and it's really good to summon Trish multiple times. Oh, one more thing, Kaleidoscope in the YCS, since the wording says that you send a monster from the extra deck, and also after that, they ruled it so that if you activate this, and your opponent changes any sentinels, you still have to send a monster, which meant that you could send the Herald, even after...
What the...
Oh, really?
That's not how it works. If they chain vanities, it doesn't. It should fizzle. Like it shouldn't attempt to send a monster. That's so funny. It's not supposed to do that.
3MC. A lot of people don't want to play 3MC because it's against the mirror match, and the mirror match always the best deck. But since YCS Tacoma was the first event with this deck, I figured that...
You're probably going to be running into a lot
Yeah, MST probably for Cleefort. Double Cyclone.
of non-Necros decks at the same time.
Yeah, because not a lot of people would have it. And also because somebody said, I read somewhere that when talking about the mirror match, somebody said that at the beginning of the format, since a lot of people would be new to the deck, and it wouldn't be like you wouldn't win most games because you would have a perfect build. Is that you would win most games because you were playing the deck correctly. So I just thought that if I practice the deck enough, even if I do like a MST in the mirror match, I would try to overcompensate with skill, so that even if I started at -1 because I MST, the fact that I was more skilled than my opponent would kind of make me win that mirror match. So that's why I chose to play MST.
Not just Clee. Well, Clee's like the best one out of those.
These are all
Just answer monsters and stuff your opponent had, right?
yeah, mainly the Gen Lock. for banning emptiness, well, that one by killing the monsters and turning off emptiness. Book of Moon because I can book my monster and like try to run over it, or I can split port like when you have the equip, you just book it and then the equip goes away and they lose. So that's still
UMBA, yeah.
emptiness, but it could like when I steal a monster. It's as the Genlock because when they summon Teslas,
It's like you do all the hard work, now I take it.
no, actually, you know, if you actually the game, I'm still in the Genlock. It doesn't become my opponent isn't the Genlock anymore.
Oh, okay.
It's just the CG.
Pokemon, yeah, I think it took a while to unlimit this card.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
That was the main deck. It was
I don't remember if it was limited for this. It definitely got unlimited
I would get 2 cards at once and set them as 1, just so the way to play for it.
later.
Okay, alright then.
For the extra deck, I two, like, you send some unicorn, you get a
Mainly for Kaleidomir, right?
yeah, it's really good.
Okay.
I saw one guy playing on the station in Lobo, and he actually made it against me.
Yeah, Herald.
He blocked my block with this, so it's like, it was pretty good. I played Go, you're just
One of the ritual spells dumps it, and then you know you get your payback.
I felt like I didn't need to because Sense of Armor is like going to you don't really want to see it.
You get a return.
Like, I really think it's worth it. Like, it won't win me as many games by searching it.
Oh, this card's pretty strong too.
So I just didn't play it. This is so you can summon Unicorn and Brio at the same time because Kaleidomir allows you to summon multiple rituals with 1 cost, as long as they are up to 10 cost. So Brio and Unicorn is really strong in Spring Abyss.
Your Royal Leo, yeah.
Afterwards, and you can make Abyss
He's a
Flare,
goat.
which turns Brownic into 2800 attack. And also you can use Abyss Flare and shovel back like 2 Dantes, and anything under it won't get attack. So that was a really strong play. Usually if you resolve that, usually just wins. So strong. Star Eater, which is 4+7 or 3+10. Actually, 4+7. Yeah, that's it. Just in case, Quasar. Some people play too. I think I'm gonna play this in the future because you like the good play. With Quasar is that you summon Unicorn and Valkyries in the mirror match, so you can just attack for a lot and just draw 2 to your field. I never actually used it though, so
Okay.
I would play 2 though because it does come up to where you use something too. One Raspberry for the mirror match. You banish all their spells and you distribute them off for Valkyries. Cowboys. Actually won like 2 or 3 games with Cowboy. Oh, it lets you OTK Clipboard because when they pay 800, if they pay 800 and you can summon Trishula to banish their monster, Unicorn and Manju or Senju, and you attack with everything directly. Maybe Sugaga Cowboys attack a game. I did that twice against Clipboard in my first round, and I just FTK'd in both games. It was pretty dope.
Broken.
Yeah, Vizzler, it's really good against
It's just
Spring
the meta in general is good.
yeah, it's just really good, especially because it goes to against every, it makes everything 500 attack. Emerald in the mirror match, it's often whoever runs out.
Nice math. Are we gonna double check it? All right, this is 3,500, 58, 58, 72, 8. Yeah, it's 8,000, right? 35, 57. Wait, is this 100 off? Hold on. What the? 35, 58. No, it's 58. Okay. No. Yeah, 58. That's correct. Okay.
I did that twice against Clipboard in my first round, and I just FTK'd in both games.
Okay, it's correct. Okay, you're just complimenting them.
General is good.
Yeah, it's just really good, especially because it goes to against every, it makes everything 500 attack. Emerald in the mirror match, it's often whoever runs out of resources loses first, and Emerald lets you not run out of resources. So it's really good. Double chain for the Genlock and a really good.
Why are you questioning my go? That's right.
And then you put something any monster on top of the wall chain, and then you use Walkers, tribute them both, and draw 2, so you draw into the monster. You're essentially just searching any monster in your deck. I did that a couple
I didn't question, but I just interpreted the nice math as in like.
When I just like stun, Castella, no staple. Ragnar for Clipboard and Crazy Box for Clipboard for when they make when they have children and just have something. That's a side deck. So for the side deck, I play thanks for Burning Abyss. I might not play in the future, but since you were the first YCS, I still wanted something for I still wanted to play it, even though since the matchup is so skewed in your favor anyways, you won't need it in the future. Two things like that, you get back on your decks. It's pretty good.
It is skewed in your favor, but there are definitely really good BA players that could manage the matchup. I think a more recent example, I mean, it's not the best example because it's like years from the actual format, but if you saw Jesse versus Jesse versus Josh playing Necros in BA, that's a pretty good example because I've been telling people that like BA is not terrible, not the worst into Necros. Like you can, if you play correctly, you can compensate for like all the effects being like just because like Dante looping and Downerd is fucked. It's really hard to get the Dantes out of rotation because of Downerd, stuff like that. Yeah, Chain can stack monsters, yeah, but it can dump any card. Yeah. But yeah, the BA matchup isn't that like dead in the water. But yeah, if you ever watched that, I think it was during Jesse Subathon. It's a pretty good example of Jesse like. I mean, you could probably say Josh made some mistakes or whatever. Like I said, it's not the best example because it's like years since they played it. I'm actually swapped decks mid match. Sag. Kaku level 4. Yeah, it does come up. Yeah, I don't know what matchup is it. What is it? 2 Kaiku. Oh, mirror match. Oh no, mirror search. Oh, okay, that's awesome.
It's like the best in the mirror match. They can't Valkyries when you have it because they can't banish from the graveyard. They can't use the mirrors from their graveyard, and you banish monsters from the graveyard when they inflict damage. Also, they can't use Trishula because they need to have targets and all, and they hand kill the graveyard and they can't banish it. And you can protect it with Valkyries. You can search it with the level chain Valkyries combo. It's just really good. Wonder Call against Genlock and just in general. 2 Twister and 3 Fairy.
Yeah. This was my side too because of Floodgates. My deck had Twister and Bucky Berry win.
Floodgate decks and against Clipboard pretty much. And card is the best card in the mirror match. Every time I do it, I won. It was just insane. I don't know. I didn't see much people playing it. I don't know why this card was crazy. Yeah.
You didn't see much people, you mean like other Necros decks, or?
Yeah, all my opponents, they weren't citing MTS and Kaigo, they were all citing Shared Right, and Mind Crush, and those cards are really easy to play
So
against.
basically, you shut them out, whereas other players were just letting the people do their moves. At the
Yeah,
same time.
yeah, I played,
Okay, I can see that.
I played 4 mirror matches, and out of the 4 mirror matches, I only lost 1 game, and that was a game 1 where the opponent opened up the Genlock, and I activated my C, and I didn't draw into any of my outs throughout the game. I drew like another match, like a bunch of MSCs, so that was 1 game out of 9. So I felt pretty good with the mirror match because of these cards.
I think you probably made the better choice in deciding to go ahead and lock out your opponents and anything, because the benefit of being able to just lock them out is that they can't do anything. So they're literally stuck with a lot of cards in their hand. Whereas if you let the opponent play and get advantage off of it, well, if your opponent is able to lock you as a result, then it doesn't matter how much advantage they have. If they can't use their hand, it's dead. So
Yeah, and
that makes sense.
also, a lot of people playing Fuka Eclipse to out the Genlock. I thought that Dark Hole and Reiki, the match removal, was just better, even if they have Gungnir, because most of the time they won't have Gungnir, and if they happen to open the Genlock and Gungnir, and then your out doesn't out it, then I mean, how often is that gonna happen? It's just lost. But these cards also help out Vanity's Emptiness, and they help out the other things easier, because a lot of people, when I would have deals of like Kaiku Emptiness, and they would activate Fuka Eclipse and try to run over my Kaiku, then I would just have Walkers, and they would just let me plus 1 Eclipse at the end phase. And I thought Fuka Eclipse was really weak. I might play it in the future, but for this event, I didn't think it was the right choice. I thought the match removal was the right choice, so that's something.
Well, you managed to go ahead and go top 16 in this thing, so obviously you know something about this game.
Yeah.
But how were your matches in general? Like, you did go to top 16, but like, how was the road to get there?
I started out, I played my 1 against the Foresight, FC Table Games. Round 2, I played against Destiny Hero, and against Destiny Hero, game 1, he opened up with like Dark Claw, Void Over Dragon, Vanity's Emptiness, and like other back row. And I mean, I just lost, like, whoa, I just couldn't do anything. I won game 2, and I was in a really good position game 3, but time got called, because he was actually reading all my cards, he didn't know what they did. And time got called, and I tried to beat him, down life points, but I couldn't. I just couldn't do enough damage, and he ended up taking the game in time.
Is this a store? I see like there's like snacks here. These are like Tostitos here. You have like a printer. Maybe this is just an office. I guess the couch is throwing me off. And then this door too.
After that, that was round 2. I lost round 2. After that, I just went undefeated. I played against one more Clipboard. I played against Yosenju. I played against
Actually, is this a couch or a door or a cabinet?
was Sahabi, the world champion.
Oh, you played Sahabi, awesome.
Also, is that Tucker Carlson? It's the store I see. Uh-oh. Is that Tucker Carlson? Oh,
It was a really favorable matchup, and we just kind of VC. It was unfortunate because he would have played.
No, that's not Tucker. It's just some other. It's probably some other conservative, but.
Yeah, it's probably for the same reason. I heard.
Who's that?
Yeah,
Fox News pundit who basically spreads fear mongering and stuff about minorities and, you know, woke agenda and all that shit. He no longer he has his own. He moved on from Fox, but he was pretty prominent back. You know, this is just someone else. Okay, this is someone that's not Tucker Carlson. Never mind. Sorry, all the conservative pundits look the same to me. My bad. Dorm is lower. Okay. I mean, it looks like it's more like a sword to me because of the tables.
So I'm like, okay, I still got this. I can win game 3. In game 3, I open and I have 5 monsters. So I think I can win game shuffle. They allow me to, since you're not only 1 per match. And it was a procedural error, so they allowed me to make it to do it again. And I did it, and I drew 5 spells and traps. And I just didn't draw any monsters, and I lost.
So you got scared one way, and then you tried to save yourself.
07 Walter.
Yeah, I mean, that was really unfortunate because I think I could have made it further.
And it happened. It's one of the components of this game is just luck. If you like just get screwed like that, sometimes you really can't help it.
Yeah, it was still pretty good. I made top 16. Pretty happy with it.
What would you say is probably like the best game that you had, or like the best experience while at the YCS?
Best game? The best experience?
That was an internet cafe. We don't really have those in the US, or at least in SoCal. I don't. Maybe there is one you can go to, but they're not too common. They ban accusation for. Thank God, that card is like nasty. Spark is legal, right? Surely man is not that playable. I will at least say it's a lot more easy to break their board. Like a Rahu probably still cooks them. I mean, you probably need to play impulse, draw impulse for that specifically, but I don't know.
Alright, everyone. Take care. See you all next time. This has been Jaku. Catch you guys later.
Oh, well. Yeah, we'll see. I hope, like, I might have to main red reboot or something like that. If that's the case. I'm not, okay, so we have a bunch of, this is my backlog. From all the people that, a lot of these are LC videos, though. Hype Ace Attorney, yeah. Hype Ace Attorney, yeah. 90% of these are fucking LC videos. All right, let's just start a fun one. Every time a Pokemon's name is said in Doctor Who. Okay, well, are we really using throw? Okay. Throw and seal? Are we okay? Come on. Karibo multiply, yeah. Paris. Paris. It was TV during your times? No. When it switches to like the Archer animation style, I can't like. Okay, the Raichu one was pretty funny. Hey, that does that count? Does the DD one count? I don't know if I count that one. That was pretty. The timing was pretty funny at least. That was absent. Are Baimon just furries? There's some anthropomorphic animals, but I feel like some are just animals. I mean, would you call a Paris a furry? Or an Oddish furry? There's just like plants and fish. Though if your first impression of Pokemon was like Incineroar and Gardevoir and Lopunny, then yeah, you could probably. I wouldn't be surprised if you thought that. The Heatran one also like strikes me as like, because you can just say heat transfer and just cut it off before they say fur. Or when I feel like they would breach the cultural zeitgeist because people just talk about, meme about those in particular. All I know is Pikachu and the Little Rock. No, I guess what you're saying is perhaps they encountered it in like a website such as Rule 34. Goodbye? Okay, I didn't expect that one. My god, that woman was like bright red earlier. Rule what? Mom knows like 30 Pokemon? Yeah. My roommate knows a few Pokemon just by osmosis. She knows what Molcharmies are. That's like... yeah. There's a $400 will charm me plushie. Oh my god. Decades content couple months. Yeah, it's like one of those like 32,000 times speed.
Somebody just passed me this and says, don't forget to subscribe to the official Boo YouTube channel. Well, how could I possibly forget that?
Did he just like commission this guy to say that?
You got the message, haven't you? Don't forget Boo YouTube channel.
Okay, that's pretty funny. All right. Yeah, I'm not a Doctor Who fan. That was pretty funny. I'll leave that. Damn. All right. Okay. We'll watch a Karibo video.
In recent weeks, I've been thinking quite a lot about non-engine in Yu-Gi-Oh! And how to design maybe like better and more reasonable and fair
Is this Aura?
non-engine.
Most likely.
At the same time, I've been playing a bit more Magic, I guess I would say, than I had.
Okay, what is this? All right, you just sent me Twitter. For raffle, I'll go with God. Bruh. All right, well, congrats. So cool. So cool, Bun Bun. 1,000 gems. If I get the Royal alt art, I'm going to be... Do you react to the Kirktoon video? I watched a part of it because I was in the middle of my climb, but like after I was done eating, I didn't finish. I mean, we could start over. But yeah, it's just like video. It's not video game. It's just like game analysis, right? I guess it's interesting to see his perspective because I guess like he's also trying. Like he's doing like he's making a good effort trying to like parse what's going on in the game. SB Trust, yes, thank you. SB Trust, yes. All right, Kariba.
Been since getting into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I thought it would be fun to go in and try to take some of the more iconic Magic.
This is I created fair and balanced, probably non-engine Yu-Gi-Oh cards based on iconic Magic cards.
Try to find ones that would be, I think, decently well balanced.
Him missing the existing attraction is funny. I guess it's kind of hard to catch because you'd have to know.
Magic, and then we'll go through
like it's something you would be mindful of if you could check the graveyard after the game goes on. You could miss it that it was centered previously or something. But yeah. He was like, oh yeah, if anyone knows what's going on, I cannot for the life of me figure out why he decided not to use one of his like free effects. It's surely a.
I think this is going to be really fun. I think that this is going to.
What do you call it? Is game broken? It's just very slow to log in. If you click on the shop, you get like Doro bounced 100 times. Like you have to wait literal minutes for the shop to actually pull up.
Because in some cases, I haven't made much.
And it'll sometimes restart. So they put it in emergency maintenance.
In both games. So before we get into
it's all but 1 second.
I wanted
True.
to talk a bit about the kind of guiding principles that I used when trying to
comparing apples to oranges. Be like, yeah.
It's an important thing to do when you are thinking about designing is to have rules for yourself that you are trying to at least trying to follow, so that you can, one, ideally create a dynamic and interesting experience, and two, know that when you are breaking one of those rules, that this is a card that is potentially risky, or a card that is worth keeping.
Yeah, when I see like create a card scene is not that popular as it was because like they would mostly show up in forums, and then they'd have like a dedicated forum for But holy moly, when I see like creative cards, they never follow any rules or any like design, like because the Konami does kind of follow some rules, like if you revive yourself from the graveyard, there's always some condition to meet, or if it's freer than that, something happens to the card on field. That's why for like the blue train guy, where he just summons a random guy from grave, not a random guy, but like an Earth Machine from grave, and there's no other conditions. They just slap a once per duel and call it a day, which is pretty lazy to me. But like something like that is not always free. But some people will oh, okay, this card needs to be Exosister Betrayal, except it's not a continuous spell, and it has to have like be unrespondable, because I really don't like like Ash Blossom or something like that. Like they cook up some whack shit. Also, boss monsters cannot be tributed. 5,000 attack cannot be tributed unaffected. I'm like, okay, this is like the shop is bugged. Yeah, Like, okay, I don't know. Like to me, that's just like, okay, you're not even like you're just trying to make a card that's like unoutable. You're not even following that many rules. But yeah,
an eye on, because it will mean either it is too good and you should be attentive to that fact, or you may well discover that it is not good and that rule that you had is actually maybe not necessary. And so I think that these are good to set out for yourself when you're thinking about designing cards. I've been thinking more about game design as a whole recently, and so I also thought this would be kind of a fun experiment. It's always easier to design an existing system than to create something completely fresh, and so I thought this would be a fun way to kind of explore some of these concepts without having to construct an entire game from the ground up. So what are my guiding principles when creating non-engine cards? I think that when we're looking at creating interesting and dynamic non-engine cards, there are 5 things for me that I look for. Number 1 is I think that in general, when you're creating non-engine, in particular interactive non-engine, the primary goal should be that it is better for the player going second than it is for the player going first. That's not to say that it should be unplayable if you draw it on as the first turn player, at least in some instances, but ideally, when you're designing these cards, a lot of these should be
yeah, I
set up
mentioned
in a
that
way
before.
where they at least try to help resolve the delta in the going first and going second win rate that exists. In general, in Yu-Gi-Oh, that's going to be...
They tend to be more interesting too, but those it's very, I don't know, it feels hard too, because like he said, if they're unplayable going first, people also will like not like them. But like I guess for like with the Molcharmies, it's unavoidable. But like for Molcharmies versus Maxi being able to go first creates like a differential. Like it probably doesn't offset the going second that Maxi would have done. But Molcharmy being unable to play going first probably doesn't make the gameplay that much like what's called interesting. Plus, I guess they did that because it's they just tied like such a powerful effect that's already hard to balance. Like it's an effect that like says like you draw a card every time your effect performs, your opponent performs an action, and it's just like there's not that many cards that do that. And if there's a card that responds to the opponent's action, you kind of lose the card. It doesn't replace itself, so it's just weird. Or stuff like Ecclesia, people will bring up, yeah, like Ecclesia special summoning herself when there's a monster on field. That's probably the ideal. Also, Ketu.
A thing that is going to be problematic, and so.
But I will say, Ketu is only kept in check because, like, even when you go first, there's not the things you search aren't like they don't do too much on their own. It's like part of a fusion deck. You're more like assembling one piece of a combo. You're trying, like because the fusion summon requires 3 cards, right? That's why it doesn't seem as bad, at least for Ketu. So there's that kind of holding it back. I mean, searching Lucius is still good or something like that, or 5 mana, it's always still good, but like it's not like doing everything on its own. Like something like Rizio X. Rizio X, goated going second. Actually, really cool that it can like chain block itself. But it's just a guy going first that just like spawns 5 billion bodies. So there is definitely a difference.
It's important to contextualize any non-engine card with how can we make sure that this doesn't just become a card that is used by the going first player, but that it is mostly a card used by the going second player. Bad examples of this that are not well executed are things like Maxi, Droll Knockbird similarly is a pretty frustrating card in no small part due to the fact that it is usable kind of equitably by the going first
I think
player.
Rizio X deserves to be in that list too.
That's guiding principle number 1 for me, is that in general, non-engine.
But that's just me. I'm just like trying to.
Better for the player going second, but not unplayable going first. You don't want them to be fully.
I think the examples he uses like illustrate his point pretty good.
Guiding principle number 2: these cards shouldn't cause turn skips against basically any deck, against any regular hand. I think that in general, this style of design is really lazy in a lot of ways. It's like a cudgel is the term I've sort of been using to describe it. When you say, well, dimensional barrier or something like some of these effects are valuable because we need them to contain X, Y, or Z overpowered archetype, and dimensional barrier, punishes you for only playing link monsters or punishes you for only playing synchro monsters. And it's like, yes, this is true, but it's a turn skip, and that isn't dynamic or interesting gameplay. That's I flipped up my dimensional barrier and I won the game. And so, in general, against regular hands, these cards, your interactive non-engine should not cause turn skips. They might happen if your opponent has a bad hand and maybe they are going to lose to one piece of interaction. You can't prevent that from happening, but it shouldn't be a situation where your opponent has a playable normal hand in the context of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And you play one of these non-engine cards and they immediately realize they have lost the game. Number 3, ideally, I think these non-engine pieces should have variable rates based on what...
This also makes... dude, I don't want to get into another tangent, but... There's like another like instance of like, non-engine card where your opponent, like board breakers, right? Your opponent is allowed to do everything. They get to play, they get to do their like 20-minute combo, no 37-minute combo, no joke or whatever. And then you can play board breakers and then start to get rid of their field or whatever. Um, there's that too. I mean, it's probably neither here nor there. But I wonder if I guess like I'd want to know if like if people consider that, I guess, interesting gameplay. And I don't mean like fucking slamming unrespawnable board breaker or whatever. I guess what I'm thinking of is I don't know. There's a lot of decks can do too much, so it does feel like similar to what he was saying, like flipping D barrier. You have to you have to activate a unrespawnable board breaker to even like get an inch past your opponent's board. So anyway, there's that.
Playing them into. So we don't really want to design cards in a way where they are just universally applicable across the board. The really obvious example here is something like Ash Blossom, which for an extended period of time has just been a card that you're going to register 3 of, and you're not even really going to think about it because while it has a somewhat varied rate matchup to matchup, the floor is never low enough that you would think about not registering it. I think in a perfect world, you want to design cards where players are being put in this position of making choices about which cards they think are going to be more valuable into the particular meta based on what they're expecting to see at that tournament. You want the cards to be good in the matchups that players are potentially predicting are going to show up, while not necessarily being just so low floor that they are playable in all matchups. This is the rule that I had the hardest time meeting, and you'll see it in some of the designs I'm going to point out when I think I've accidentally broken this rule. Number 4 is it should give the player having the non-engine used against them some amount of agency, some amount of agency in the process. So a good example of this, I think, is something like Molcharmi Fulos or the other Charmies, where once it is used, the player who had it used against them still has some kind of decision process that they can make about making some kind of half board or how many cards they're going to feed to the Charmy. Obviously, I think for the Charmies in particular, this is something that for some decks is a fake choice because they can't get to a reasonable half board without giving your opponent 5 draws. But in general, I think it is aspirational to have the good side of the Charmy effect in your non-engine cards. You should design cards where if a player has it activated against them, they subsequently then can make choices to either play into it more or play into it less. And I like these kinds of non-engine cards more because I think that it allows you to potentially put more power in them if you are allowing both players to be involved in the process of what actually happens when this card resolves. And then lastly, this is more of my take and less of something that happens, I would say, but I think the most powerful non-engine cards should either be archetypal or should have pretty significant locks. And so the examples of this that are better executed are things like the Dominus cards. These ones at least lock you into particular summoning types if they're activated from hand. But the problem, in my opinion, with the Dominus cards to an extent is that those locks are either not restrictive enough or they ultimately make the cards almost just feel better as a card going first because you can always just set them and not have to deal or engage with that potential downside. So you'll see me templating certain cards more aggressively even than some of the Dominus cards in terms of how archetypal they are or how strong the lock is for playing them. I think that it is okay for powerful non-engine to exist and for the most powerful non-engine to potentially ride the line of a lot of these other design principles that I'm talking about. But if you are going to create cards like that and you're going to have cards like that in the metagame, I think that the cost of that should be, not even necessarily the cost, but I think the overall effect of that should be that these really powerful cards might well require you to make really constrained deck building decisions in terms of how you are constructing your deck, and it might allow you to push certain archetypes more into the metagame by virtue of giving them access to powerful non-engine. So without further ado, those are my 5 guiding principles. We'll talk about them on each individual card, but let's get into the Magic cards. Okay, so I was originally pretty concerned with how I was going to figure out the templating for a lot of these cards in terms of whether I was going to make them like spells, traps, or monsters, because obviously this is one of the key distinctions between Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that in Magic, many of those card types don't exist. So the first one, I decided to go with one that would be very easy to resolve. This is Mind Break Trap. So if you're a Magic player, you're pretty familiar with this card. Mind Break Trap is a 2 blue instant. It's a trap. Hint about what I'm going to template it as in Yu-Gi-Oh! And it says, if an opponent casts 3 or more spells this turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay Mind Break Trap's cost. Exile any number of target spells. Now, important context for
Opponent
Yu-Gi-Oh!
casts 3 or
players,
more
spells
spells,
in
pay
the Magic
0.
context means anything.
I see.
So a creature is a creature spell. So if your opponent casts 3 creatures, this is technically turned on and usable. Let's talk about how I templated this into Yu-Gi-Oh! So it's a trap, obviously. I kept the same name. I haven't done that for all of them, but in this one, I don't think there is already a Mind Break Trap in Yu-Gi-Oh! So we're going to make one now. And I kept some of the same templating. So the template I kept was, if your opponent has activated 3 or more spell or trap, I decided to include, spell or trap cards this turn, you may play this card from your hand. If this card was activated from your hand, negate all spells and traps on the current chain.
It doesn't have PSET. Okay. I'll let him read it out.
Graveyard, banish them instead. So this is capturing the exile clause of Mindbreak Trap. Your opponent may search their deck for a trap and set it. This is kind of the red reboot text because I do think this ability is quite powerful, so I want to give some amount of recourse to your opponent if this happens. And then, if not, if this wasn't cast from your hand, negate target spell or trap. If it is negated, destroy it. So this is unsearchable, notably.
Okay, if your opponent has to activate 3 more spell and trap cards this turn, you control no cards. You may play this from hand. If this card is activated from hand, negate all spells and traps on the current chain. I wonder, does this functionally? I guess it. You could just say on negate all spells and traps on the field functionally, right? It would be almost the same. I guess it would not. Like notably, Droplet can still dodge this. If it did say that, if these cards would go to the graveyard, banish them instead. Opponent may search their deck for a trap and set it. If not, negate. It is negated. Okay, so they set a trap, and if not, target spell a trap is negated, destroy it. Huh. Not bad.
So I don't see this as particularly powerful. My theory behind transferring this card from Magic into Yu-Gi-Oh is that I think the number 3.
This feels like it's not that crazy because you still have to wait for your opponent to activate 3 or more spell cards. I think what is nice about it is it doesn't play into talents. That's kind of what I like about it. You can't play this against every deck though. I guess if they like have a normal summon starter, you're probably gonna explode when they activate this card. So this will probably need to be prepared if you're trying. If you like try, but I don't know. I don't expect them to have like that many. I mean, it could because there's like field spell, then normal spell, probably recruiter in that case. So I guess like versus Lunalight, I could see that. Yeah, I guess versus like fusion decks, you could probably it would be later as they develop their combo.
Kind of a sweet spot with spells and traps, and you will notice this card is akin to it's similar to the effects of something like say Nibiru. Now, Nibiru is a lot more pervasive and has a lot more, I think, risk associated with it because monsters are much more common for decks to want to summon a lot of, and additionally, Nibiru gets everything.
You try to open MD?
You know,
I don't know.
but everything that's been played on the turn up until that. So I think Mindbreak Trap is obviously weaker than Nibiru, and it kind of fits that rule of having a variable rate. But against the decks that you want this, you really want this. If you can imagine a world where Sky Striker becomes problematic and oppressive, well, having access now to this card, to a card like Mindbreak Trap, would allow you to potentially have a lot of game into something like, say, a Sky Striker deck. Similarly, if decks that are relying heavily on traps become really pervasive, you have this as a way to potentially blow out multiple trap activations on the same chain. But I don't think this is something where it's going to be oppressive in every matchup where you're going to be staring at your hand thinking, oh my god, how do I beat the Mindbreak Trap? Obviously, the cost of it is that when you do get beaten by Mindbreak Trap and you get like your spells exiled, that's potentially backbreaking. But I think that creates this nice push and pull of figuring out, okay, when
They extended it again? All right, I'm not even gonna try then.
So that I cannot risk them getting Mindbreak Trapped. And then once you put the Mindbreak Trap, once you put your third spell onto the chain, you know that you are potentially playing into this relatively powerful effect, but you can try to sequence around it. One other thing I didn't put in my description, but I think is going to be the case for all of these cards, and I'll add them in the actual custom cards that I put on screen while I'm talking about them. These are all going to be hard ones per turns, so I think.
Yeah, this is a lot more interesting because it's like not applicable in every single matchup. But I do think this would need to be paired if you do main deck it or something like that. You're gonna have to like, okay, because this definitely needs some like monster negation or something like that to like feel like it's doing anything. To like basically force your opponent to, you know, recover. If the deck plays like a bunch, you know, like recruiters that are spells, you know, like I don't know, or like a field spell or continuous spell. Controlling no cards means you can't use it like on your own turn. So it's kind of rough.
this would not be an effect that you would want to have activatable multiple times in a turn. So yeah, hard once per turn to keep it a bit safer as well. And then lastly, I didn't want to make this be something where if you drew it going first, you had to kind of either hold it.
I invaded
because
Konami servers.
only cast 3 spells. I wanted you to be able to set
XDD.
it, but obviously this effect is way too powerful to just allow you to set it and tag their first or second spell or something with the same effect. So it's just a single 1-for-1 negate. If you set it, it's unsearchable, so I think that's fine. Like I don't think it's a huge issue to give a spell trap negate on a trap. That's an effect that happens, I think, pretty generically without too much trade off. And obviously your opponent doesn't get to search if you just 1-for-1 negate them, which I think feels pretty reasonable. So yeah, so let's look at the 5 principles. It should be better going first. It should be better going second than going first. I think this is true. This is better at stopping your opponent from having some crazy pop-off turn involving a lot of spells and traps. Should not cause turn skips against regular hands. Kind of categorically, by your opponent needing to have already played 3 spells or traps, then that means, or activated, I should say. I'll retemplate that for the custom card. Your opponent has played already. It's not a turn skip. They've played some amount of their turn. This might end some turns. I think there is a chance that exiling a couple of spells might be enough to end some turns. But in general, I think against regular hands it shouldn't. Should have variable rates depending on the matchup. Seems like it meets this one perfectly. Obviously, against monster-heavy decks, this is not going to be super powerful. Against decks like Striker or Odeon, it's probably going to be pretty good. Should give the player having the non-engine used against them some amount of recoil.
Hello, my Gen Z friend. Hello.
Where you know what you're going to expose and what you're not going to expose. I think it meets that one. I don't think this is powerful enough to meet the level of needing to have some kind of lock or restriction. I would entertain that not being true, and I'd love to hear in the comments for any of these cards if you think that I have like fundamentally missed some interaction that would make this card really unfair. That's obviously gonna happen. There are 10,000 plus Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I'm gonna miss things.
You also react to Hagrid?
How much I
yeah, Karibo.
But
well, Josh got fucked by maintenance. Poor Josh.
But if you think that's wrong, I would love to know, and I will look forward to seeing those comments. So yeah, so that's the first one. This one was actually the card that inspired me to make this video. It was the easiest one in my head to go, yeah, you can basically retemplate this 1-for-1, and then you've just got to do a little bit of tweaking to...
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take forever.
Making it feel better for going second than going first. But this card, honestly, was very easy to template across the board. And what's interesting about it is that in Magic, it's doing the same thing. In Magic, this card is being used against the spell combo decks. One of the cool clauses about this card is because it's exile any number of target spells, you can tag Storm copies. Storm is a pretty iconic Magic mechanic where when you cast a spell with Storm, you get to copy it for however many other spells you cast the turn before. There are a myriad of decks across a variety of formats that attempt to end the game.
You know what I'm waiting for? People just show up to chat and be like, "Whoa, face reveal." I really honestly don't understand that. I really don't. If it's like a Josh meme or something like that, because I don't watch Josh anymore. Adding raffles kill the server? Sag.
It's used earlier in the combo to be disruptive. Can also just be used to exile all of the copies of the Storm spell off the stack and potentially win the game that way. So, very cool card, very interesting card that I think templates pretty reasonably into Yu-Gi-Oh! All things considered. All right, so let's move on. That one was easy, and I think that one would fit pretty comfortably. Let's move on to one that I think is pushed. Okay, so from a card that I think fits perfectly to a card that I'm a little concerned about. This is one where I think this is probably okay, but there's a chance that this card is way too good. So this is, in Magic, Surgical Extraction. Surgical Extraction casts for 1 black or 1 Phyrexian mana, which means it's free. And what this card does is you can exile a target card in a graveyard, and then you search the opponent's hand, graveyard, and deck for all other copies of that card and exile them as well. So in the Yu-Gi-Oh context, I have basically retemplated this to DD Crow Plus. I have named it Unlicensed Lobotomist. I don't know why. It just felt like
face reveal. Yeah, face reveal. If you control no card, I love how they made it a zombie tuner just to make it. It's not even level 3 though. They're just like zombie tuner just because Ash Blossom. That's literally great. If you control no card, discard this card, target a card, and you advance this card and search your opponent. Yeah, this is Karma Cut. Well, not really. Karma Cut requires a monster on the field. Unlicensed Lobotomist. Okay.
And this would be a hand trap where with a quick effect, you would discard it, you would target a card in your opponent's graveyard. It would be a hard once per turn, and you would banish that card, and then I think in Yu-Gi-Oh! The hand has got to be sacred, so I think you would just say, search their deck, and I think you could even allow searching the extra deck, potentially if you tag an extra deck monster, for all copies of that card, and it would allow you to banish them. So this card is a bit weird because I think it is...
Oh, it counts any card, I guess. Huh.
Way too good, or it is close to just not playable. In my head, what this would allow you to do is disrupt loops in a way that allowed you to prevent your opponent from ever getting that card into rotation again.
Bro, this is like anti engage. This is what the
not you DD Crow the first one, sometimes your opponent is able to like research the second copy of something, like look at like maybe like the yummy combos or things like this. They're able to get multiple of the normal summonable yummies into rotation. So like if you somehow DD Crow or tag the first Marshmallow, they often have ways to get the second Marshmallow into rotation so that on your turn they've still got one to special summon with one of the synchros. So the idea here is that this is better DD Crow. Like I'm not going to sit here and say that this isn't just a strict upgrade on DD Crow. It is, but DD Crow is largely kept to the periphery of playability these days, and this one would be much stronger, but yeah, I don't know. So let's talk about the individual guiding principles behind this one and whether they fit, whether they don't fit. So should be better going second, but not unplayable going first. The person going first is going to put cards in their graveyard first. So I think that meets this criteria. You're more likely to want to have some kind of hand trap interaction going second.
Scuba Chud, yeah, Scuba Chud.
Still good going first, so maybe that's something we would need to look at. Like maybe we could say if you control no cards, activate this card. Maybe that's more fair, and then that way it's more of just a going second kind of like disruptive piece that once you develop, you can't play it. The more I think about it, all right, I'm going to add that to the templating. So we'll add if you control no cards, you can activate this as a quick effect. And then, yeah, probably once you've activated a card, maybe we'll just make this like or once you have a card in play, maybe we'll make this like a random tuner so that it at least is theoretically usable in some way. I do worry that it makes it too searchable, though. Should not cause turn skips against regular hands. I think this is true. Like, obviously, if you hit a key piece at a linchpin moment, then maybe you are going to cause the end of a turn. But I think that aspirationally, breakpoints and knowing breakpoints is not a bad thing to have in Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, so I don't mind this one too much, and I don't think the extra clause of going and tagging cards from the extra deck or deck and the other ones in the graveyard is problematic in that regard. I think that's fine. Additionally, because the hand is safe, if your opponent has a way in the same chain to get something back into their hand, even if it's not the copy that you're targeting, they have a way to kind of hide at least one copy of the card in their hand. I think that seems pretty reasonable. It should have variable rates depending on the matchup. Obviously, graveyard interaction is variable, kind of.
I could see Striker doing that.
Have different amounts of susceptibility to graveyard interaction, and so as a result, I think that we meet this criteria pretty comfortably. Next, it should give the player having the non-engine used against them some amount of recourse. This is the one that is the worst, I think, because this tags everything in the deck. It kind of gives the other player no recourse potentially, so we are probably breaking one of the rules here, so that would be something to monitor. And then again, most powerful ones should be archetypal. I don't think this is powerful enough to need to be archetypal. Again, if you disagree, let me know. Maybe this needs to have some kind of lock on it. I think by adding you can only activate this effect if you control no cards, you probably push this into a state of being reasonable enough as mostly just a going second disruptive card and something that would be played in sideboards more than main decks. But
Rapier, yeah.
But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is a card that is just too powerful, and it is a good example of.
But technically, you don't have to play into this with Rapier, right? Well, maybe you play into other cards, but you can just park the Rapier underneath the Xyz. It just grants the second copy on top. You just detach an Xyz instead. So I mean, like, it's possible. I guess you don't have to worry about it. But I guess that's like technically yes. Yeah. But I imagine you play into other things.
When you look at it, and when I thought about the card, I thought, well, this sounds interesting, but maybe
run more zoo names. Okay.
And then
I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable because like it's either if this card is like I don't think this card would be ubiquitous, right? But if this card is present in the format, that is something to keep in mind. Yeah. I don't think it's like free, but I feel like the risk of getting owned by this card, if it is ubiquitous, is still worth it. It's probably worth a squeeze.
To go through and say, why does it sound too good? And we've identified that it probably gives the other player not enough recourse necessarily, and that's the principle it's probably violating. So that's something to monitor. But I do think in general that this kind of surgical extraction effect is one that is underexplored in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's not something in particular that you can't give it to the going first player. This is the important thing. And there are a myriad of cards in Magic that have this same kind of text of search your opponent's hand and deck for all the copies of whatever card, remove them from the game. Sadistic Sacrament is like one of the first ones, the kind of like iconic ones. And obviously an effect like this wouldn't be reasonable to have in Yu-Gi-Oh! Sadistic Sacrament is black for a sorcery that has kicker 7 that says search your opponent's deck for 3 cards, remove them from the game. If this was kicked, I think it searches for 10 and you remove 10 cards from your opponent's deck. And obviously in Yu-Gi-Oh! That would be like incredibly problematic for a variety of reasons. Most of them to do with the fact that cost is a different thing, right? Like the cost in Magic is you're paying a card in hand and you're likely skipping your third turn to take cards out of your opponent's deck, not even your opponent's hand. And so you're likely really far behind on tempo and development. And so it's fine in that context because it's being used for pretty specialized cases, but in Yu-Gi-Oh! It would be used in very nefarious ways, obviously, because there aren't the same costs associated with it. And I think it would be like an absurd going first card. But this one, where it requires the card to already be in the graveyard, we're going to protect your hand. You're not going to be able to lose cards out of your hand. I think sounds to me like it might be okay. Again, love to hear if you disagree, but that's surgical extraction / unlicensed lobotomist. Okay, so the next one we have, I didn't do this on purpose, but we've gone trap, monster, and now we're getting a spell. So this is one that is very iconic, this card. This is Cabal Therapy, which is not going to be templated in quite the same way that you would see in Magic. So Cabal Therapy is a 1 black or a single black mana sorcery that says name a card, look at target opponent's hand. If they have any copies of the named card,
Damn, what the heck is this?
And then it has flashback, which allows you to cast it from the graveyard. And the flashback cost is sacrificing a creature, and then you do the same thing again. So the idea with this card is that you cast it, you name a card, and you basically are just hoping to hit. There are lots of really cool Cabal Therapy mind games that go on. In particular, the card Brainstorm exists in Legacy, which is the format that gets played in the most. It allows you to draw 3 cards and then put 2 cards back on top of your deck. And so you have these really interesting moments where the first Cabal Therapy, a lot of the time, might name Brainstorm because that's the card that's most likely to disrupt the follow-up Cabal Therapy activation from your graveyard. There are the opportunities to hit multiple of the same card in your opponent's hand if you like really sack them out and you name something that they have 2 of, and then all of a sudden you've paid 1 black mana to 2 for 1 your opponent. That's kind of crazy. But overall, Cabal Therapy is mostly used by decks that are looking to put it in the graveyard and get access to it that way. It's being played by decks that are self-milling themselves as like a payoff for putting a bunch of cards from your library into your.
I see. Okay, I guess I would have to see how he translates this, but the fact that you can use it twice is kind of wild.
Graveyard, and I wanted to capture that same kind of energy in Yu-Gi-Oh! The problem, obviously, is hand attack and discard in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is broken to a point where you could not template this card the same as it is templated in Magic, like in any way. I don't think you could do something like the first one is a peak, and then the second time that you cast it from the graveyard, you get to name something and discard. And you definitely couldn't do it in the naming way. And the reason for that is that, you know, if you ever 2 for 1 your opponent, I think with this card, it's just so busted, and it would be too powerful as a going first card. You could do something like play this, name whatever non-engine piece you're losing to, and just none of those things sound particularly satisfying for any player involved. So I retemplated it to have what I think is more interesting disruption in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Context, in an effort to make it more of a going second card than a going first card. So I kept the same name, so Cabal Therapy is still Cabal Therapy. This is a spell. It's a normal speed spell. This is
Name a monster, destroy all monsters in the field with that name.
Name a monster, destroy all monsters on the field with that name. So if for whatever reason your opponent has 2 of the same monster in play, you will tag both.
Okay, this is more interesting. Like, you still kind of have to like go a little neg, but it is kind of it isn't quite like a 1 for 2 because you still have to tribute from field. But like the fact that a card can like threaten, you know, removal twice, that's pretty strong.
And then it says you may cast this card from your graveyard. If you do,
Declare, yeah,
to cast it or play it. And I think that, and then it has the same effect again. Obviously, flashback is not templated the exact same in Yu-Gi-Oh, so you need to add that text of do the same thing. But that's what this would do. This would allow you to get 1 monster for free, like you would just name a monster and play. And obviously, that does lose some of the fun elements of like gambling on whether or not your opponent has 2 of a certain thing. But I think in order to make it really fit in Yu-Gi-Oh, you have to do that. But then it also has this element of you're able to trade some of your resources to get another activation out of this, or if you are able to put this into the graveyard somehow.
I think this one's the most interesting one out of all. Though you can't really play it.
Too powerful. Let's look at it through the various principles. It should be better going second. It is better going second because destroying a monster is in general going to be more of a going second kind of effect. Should not cause turn skips. We can look at cards like the Fallen and the Virtuous currently, or Forbidden Crown that doesn't quite destroy things, but it's pretty similar. They don't cause turn skips in general. I think people have
rather play Herald of the Abyss.
Non-engine suite of the TCG. Should have a variable rate depending on the matchup. I think this is true, depending on what you're playing against.
Oh yeah, it also names a monster. Yeah.
Especially the second one is not always necessarily going to be as valuable, so I think that's pretty reasonable as well. Should give the player having the non-engine used against them.
I like this grave effect. That's like what makes it like interesting to me.
Which means that you get to get around certain.
But it's not like super crazy board breaker.
And allows some amount of recourse or some amount of interaction that would not otherwise be accessible. But at the same time, because it's going on the chain and it has a name already, if you have some kind of way to bounce something back to your hand, you can use that to kind of outplay this card. And then lastly, the most
also negates graveyard effect. No, my all-powerful Magnus.
Perhaps I am wrong.
He was kind of
That
sussy.
second
Yeah.
clause about tributing a monster should be tributing a monster of a specific type or a specific attribute. That is absolutely something that you could do if you decided that this card was too powerful.
Oh, if this was quick play, that's probably something he was. Well, I mean, I'm sure he's aware of what a quick play is, but yeah, that would be interesting buff.
Knob on the card in a way where it's all of a sudden going to feel much more balanced. So yeah, that's Cabal Therapy, one of my favorite cards in Magic. Obviously, this is the first one where I think we have not fully captured the exact spirit of it. But
Does he not play the game?
Where
No, I'm just he does, but I'm just
I
like
think that it's pretty sweet.
maybe it wasn't
They
like
were pretty simple in terms of.
I was
how
just
they work.
I was
This
just
next
thinking
one
like
is
maybe
weird, and it's weird as a Magic
maybe he'd agree, but he didn't consider it
so
at the
this is
time
Chancellor
if you
of the
mentioned it
Annex.
to him.
This is a 7-mana creature angel. It's a 5/6, and it says, and this is the important text: you may reveal this card from your opening hand. If you do, when each opponent casts his or her first spell of the game, counter that spell unless that.
Reveal this card
is
from your opening hand.
Now, let's talk about how we can retemplate this into Yu-Gi-Oh! Because
I
there's one
see.
core problem. There are not really start of the game effects.
This is kind of
in the same
like,
way that there are in Magic.
dude, this is
It's
just
really
like you know what this reminds me of? The stupid Iceberg card that people love making. This is what this card reminds me of. The question is, how good is he at the game? I don't think he claims to be that good, but yeah.
kind of a pervasive effect. It's not the most common, but
All right, I'm right now. If this is
a non-trivial
Raiho,
any
yes.
beginning of game effects is a pretty common thing to have to throw out.
This is
there.
turn 0
But
D-spell,
I
counter
believe
trap.
that Chancellor of the Annex, both in
Magic
and
Drain,
in
yeah,
Magic
yeah,
Drain,
yeah,
can
yeah.
be very cool because it is very good at allowing both players to have some amount of engagement in what's going on in the game. The player with the Chancellor of the Annex is allowing themselves to slow the game down by basically introducing this one-time tax. It's going to potentially stop the opponent of doing something on turn 1.
Yeah, they extended the maintenance basically.
Do I play
I don't know what the
one
issue
card
is
from the
exactly,
first
but
card
they
in order
basically
to be able to pay the
made
one for the
it take
Chancellor of the
longer.
Annex? Or do I throw a 1-cost card on turn 1 into this effect and just allow it to be countered, and then that will allow me to play a 2-drop on my second turn? I think that there's a lot of cool back and forth that's created by this card. The last thing this card does that's relevant is that it also says whenever an opponent casts a spell, counter it unless that player pays.
Probably
1.
was paying out too much,
This
dude.
into play is hard. It costs 7.
Yeah.
You can reanimate it, but there are better things to be reanimating typically. But in Yu-Gi-Oh, I think we can capture both of these elements in a way that feels, I think, pretty interesting. So here's how I've retemplated it into Yu-Gi-Oh. I have named this card Angel of Discord. I think that's not a name that's taken, although it sounds.
Activate in response to the effect that would special summon a monster. Your opponent must tribute a monster on the field. If they do not,
this to be a free agent, not something that just went in every day. So I
huh?
have this as a level 7 effect monster.
Wait, I can't tell. This has to be on the field, huh? Unless he intended this. Did he intend this to be on the field?
At 2,500, probably shouldn't be 2,500 maybe for regenesis.
The first light makes you think it's a hand trap. I imagine it's a field
And I
effect.
have it saying, at the beginning of the first standby phase, you may reveal this card from your hand. If it is your turn, you may special summon.
He does intend this to be a hand trap.
Opponent's turn. Negate the first monster
Okay, this is the. It's not worded like one. It should be light fiend.
spell or trap your opponent activates. So what this means is if you
Place one discard for your deck on the field. What is this dueling skill?
you can reveal it and you get a free body. I think that we need to make sure the body wasn't going to be like too massively impactful, but this allows you to play the card without it being a complete brick. And then if you are the going second player, this allows you to put up a one-time negate, omni negate, on the first turn, and it basically does it in a way where
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't want to like imply,
it's gonna negate anything, which means
but like the details that he's missing are like, you know,
that's not necessarily the best, but I think that it's still interesting enough because probably what happens is your opponent has to make a decision on what card in their hand they have to feed to the Angel of Discord in order to then be able to play their turn. And aspirationally, the trade-off is, well, I've traded one card in my hand, I haven't had to use it, so I'm not down material, but I've also not gotten a ton of agency in terms of where it's been used. You're abdicating the agency down onto the turn player in exchange for providing more material for the player going second who had this effect. I would make this a once per turn. I would not make it so that
these mostly didn't why bother at all.
obviously not something that would be especially reasonable. I would also hear arguments that just allowing it to be special summoned if you're the going first player is too good.
Yeah, I was gonna forgive no PSCT at least, but yeah, this is really confusing. At least, like,
To me, this was the most fair thing I could think about doing with it to not just make it a total brick going second or going first. Sorry, maybe it is a card that's just fine to have be a brick going first though, and that would relegate it to the sideboard or to the side deck. Sorry, that could be fine as well. I again would happily hear arguments one way or the other on that front. Let's look at the 5 guiding principles on this card. Should be better going second than it is going first. Obviously, I think we know that this is true with this card. Should not cause turn skips against regular hands. The average modern Yu-Gi-Oh hand can play through an Omni Negate that they get to control what gets Omni.
Change our view of things.
Number 3.
It's not the best solution, but at least it's not like.
Matchups are going to have different abilities to play through.
Nah, it's still open to misinterpretation. It's more like at least tries to be consistent.
Give the player having the non-engine used against them some amount of recourse. I think this one really succeeds in this element more than any of the other cards I've shown so far, because it's allowing the other player to be the one who decides exactly what gets negated. You are creating, I think, this really interesting back and forth between players. And then lastly, most powerful one should be archetypal. This is one that I would entertain putting in an archetype, I should also note. I think this one is powerful enough that it's possible this should have some kind of lock. Maybe this should have some kind of name associated with it, and so as a result, like, it's only really playable in that archetype. Maybe you could template it in a way where you have to reveal it plus a monster with the same name. Like, I've named it Angel of Discord. Maybe there's an angel archetype we can create where you need to also show another angel in order to be able to get this effect.
Yeah. Well,
you could turn if you felt like
yeah, maybe consistency is the right word.
I really like
the
concept of show the card, you get a one-time Omni, so you're not down material as the going second player, but you have very little engagement in terms of where the Omni is being used. I think this effect is pretty cool and is genuinely interesting for both players involved. Okay, so one of the main design constraints that you have kind of between Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the fact that in Magic, these taxing effects, like we saw with Chancellor of the Annex, are a reasonable way to kind of control the power level of a interactive card. So we see things in Magic pretty commonly that either adjust the cost of things or force players to pay an extra cost in order to get their effect. The most common place that you see this now is in Ward, which is when a creature...
TCG Pocket also does that. It usually turns into, in a way, it is kind of like a turn skip in a TCG Pocket, because like some like energy costs, like 3 energy costs is a lot, but there's like a few cards that force you to pay an extra, or like to perform that action you need to have 3, an additional energy to like, I mean the card itself is not that great, it just sits there, it's pretty much dead weight. But it does achieve like that kind of like turn skippy. Like it's usually like something that's 1 energy becomes 2 energy, so you have to wait an additional turn to attach an energy. So it's like, bruh.
Or in some cases, other non-land permanent.
You guys be consistent with the wording.
For their spell to resolve, or else it gets countered. It could be mana. It can be life. A recent card in the new Marvel set that's coming out.
Yeah, makes sense.
Poison counters on you if in order for you to pay the ward, which is very cool because if you get to 10, you lose the game. So it basically says you can target this exactly once.
Serpent. Hold on, I missed that.
If you get to 10, you lose the game. So it basically says.
Oh, why is it so laggy?
You can target this exactly once.
Bro, there's a delay when I click on this.
Cool because if you get to 10, you lose the game. So it
holy. Get 5 poison counters. Player with 10 or more poison counters loses the game. If that touch dies, each point sacrifice a non-token creature of their choice. Okay.
Basically says you can target this exactly once, and if for whatever reason that doesn't work, then you're never targeting it again. There's cool things that can be done, and obviously in Yu-Gi-Oh! There are not quite the same tools to allow taxing effects, but with this next card, I have tried to do that. So this is Mana Leak, a really classic, simple version of this effect. Mana Leak is 1 in a blue for an instant that says counter target spell unless its controller pays 3 mana, 3 generic mana, and that's it. It's just a point-and-click counterspell. Your opponent has to pay 3 mana, which means that later in games, when they have more mana available, this doesn't necessarily tag everything, but on curve it does, and Mana Leak has been playable in a bunch of different formats at a bunch of different times. Great card, very cool. How do we make it into a Yu-Gi-Oh card? So I have named this card Dimensional Block, which I think doesn't exist. I should have checked, though. I definitely should have confirmed this name. This is a trap.
No, we don't have a dimensional block. Activate in response to an effect that would special summon a monster. Your opponent must tribute a monster on the field. He really likes this as a way to mimic mana costs if they do not negate the card. Opponent controls a card. You may activate this from hand. Well, this is just like Impulse. Like the other one was just basically Impulse too.
I have templated this with Dominus Impulse style templating. So
that might be Degenerate Circuit, the one you're thinking about,
Von monster on the field if they do not negate that card. And so the idea here is that this is trying to give you a powerful.
Oh, it could be Summoning Curse. You're right. Yeah. Never mind. You're right. It's probably Summoning Curse.
Most players have to think about whether or not this card is around, because if you are, say, the person who's going first playing into this, you would have the option of going like normal summon, then play my effect that special summon, so that I know I have material lying around to throw away to pay for the dimensional block. But then at the same time, if you successfully dimensional block your opponent, you're at least getting something out of the deal no matter what. And so this is a card where if you draw it going second, you can feel pretty confident that it is at least going to in some way impact the way that your opponent develops, because you're either taking them down on material or you're negating one of their special summoning effects, but not both, right? You're doing one or the other. And I think that
I don't know if I like this card.
if we look at it,
It feels very
should
generic.
be better going second, but not unplayable going first. I think this one's fine, and I think this one you could just allow players to set and activate. I don't mind it too much as a going first card either. It's not searchable. I don't think that it is, because it's a little more conditional. I think it's totally fine. Should not cause turn skips against regular hands. Like, you should be able to play through this in an average hand. This would not skip your turn. This might hit a break point. We've talked about the fact that we're okay with that. It should have variable rates depending on the matchup. There are certainly going to be matchups that are more replete with monster spam, and there's just going to be a bunch of bodies on the board that your opponent is probably going to be able to attribute to pay for this. And then there are going to be other matchups where your opponent is going to be really low on bodies. I am noticing that a lot of these cards that I'm designing,
It's a rollback target.
They're really good into Striker in particular. Like, so many of these cards are good into Sky Striker.
Yeah, I noticed all this shit was good into fucking Engage. Like, bruh. Is that a coincidence?
In specific, which I'm not doing on purpose, but it would be good at Sky Striker for this reason. It should give the player having the non-engine used against them some recourse. Obviously, it does. You can choose whether or not to pay the cost. You can try to play around it, or just choose to play into it. And then lastly, the most powerful one should be archetypal. This one I wouldn't ever consider this one being archetypal. This one to me is a home run. Simple.
To be honest, I don't like how generic this is.
Interesting and dynamic and cool. Let me know if you think this one would be too good going first. Like, if you could just set this and get this effect. I don't think it is. I don't think it's too powerful. But I would be fascinated to know. Yeah, I think that it could be quite reasonable. It needs the dominance templating of, like, if your opponent controls a card, you can activate this from hand, which I would do. I wouldn't put any locks on it like it has with the dominance impulse, but that's the other thing, obviously.
Lose 6-7 card.
It has the if your opponent controls clause for it being activated from hand. And then I guess maybe you needed to also say, and you do not control any cards, so that you can't activate it from hand going first, but not have to set it, because in general we want people to have to set things when they're going first, so that we at least know what we're playing into going second. Okay, we've hit the first one that I think is definitely archetypal. The power level on this card is high, and honestly, we're in the final stretch now. We've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so we've done 5, and we've got 5 more. And I will say these last 5 are more powerful, I think, and I've pushed the boat out a bit more for these ones. So this is Aven Mind Sensor. I have templated this card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Into Lockbird the Redeemed, because this is my attempt to try and find a
Lockbird the Redeemed.
Lockbird. So Aven Mind Sensor.
After opponent searches his deck for a card, you may reveal and switch on his friend. They search the top 15 cards of their deck instead. I don't think this does anything. While you control this monster that you only special summon wind monsters or spellcasters. Oh, I mean, top 15 kind of matters. I don't know. This is just kind of like... I know what he's trying to do. He's going to be like... He's being like, okay, so instead of floodgating you, we're just going to make you flip a coin, basically, whether you get the search or not. Because that's what essentially... It's probably less than a coin flip to obtain the card you want. Dude, this feels like a Pokemon card where you, like, to perform an action that you're when you're being gate kept by an action, you have to flip a coin to actually do it. I don't know if I like this. Would fail to search trigger here? I don't even want to think about that. Technically, we don't even have fail to search.
Instead, they search the top 4 cards of their library. So,
but I assume the idea is you whiff. You still have to verify what the 15 cards are.
Your opponent is trying to chain tutors a lot of the time. You can oftentimes
man.
them with the top 4. They don't find.
No, I don't think I like this.
Because of the prevalence of cards like fetch lands, which again search a library in order to find a land, and so a lot of the times you can mind censor your opponent and either stop them from getting a land entirely or force them to get the wrong land, one they weren't necessarily interested in.
Konami programmers, yeah, there's probably some bug that they
it would be too good.
Happens when they add new shit.
Too good and would cause a bunch of problems.
But this is like the 3rd emergency maintenance I remember.
In a way that feels somewhat reasonable to me, and we'll see. So this one I have as a level 2 winged beast, obviously if it's a bird, and I have the text: after an opponent searches their deck for a card, you may reveal and special summon this card from your hand. When an opponent would search their deck, they instead search the top 15 cards of their deck. So I felt like 4 was way too restrictive for Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, that's crazy, and you would always brick, or you would often brick, and that wasn't good. But 15, I think, still allows for there to be some interesting plays. And then, while you control this monster that you own...
When was the first 2? The Xyz Cup, and then when Draco Tail came to... There was a bug that they had to fix where you could normal summon Ketu.
I wanted to put some kind of like relatively aggressive lock on this card that keeps it out of every archetype, because I think this is very powerful. The idea here is that top 15 means that this is pretty punishing to decks that are playing a bunch of garnets and are looking to go one of into one of into one of into one of, but it is much less punishing to decks that are chaining together their three ofs, because you are much less likely to.
The Xyz Cup was the one where you would log in
Notably, unlike
to the Xyz Cup and you would gain gems, and people exploited that. Yeah, normal summon spell card, yeah.
You can negate it, you can destroy it, you can get it off the field and be able to continue playing your turn in a way that obviously you can't with Droll and Lockbird, and you still get to draw cards, which is the other important thing. So even if you are stifled on your searching effects, you still get access to your draw cards if you have other effects to draw cards. Overall, I think maybe top 15 people are going to say that's still going to brick my hand a decent amount of the time. I'm not interested in playing against this card. And as I mentioned, I do think this one is pushing the boat out a little bit in terms of the power level. But let's talk about it in the guiding principles and figure out why we think it's pushing the boat out a little far. It should be better going second, but not unplayable going first. It's better going second, but not unplayable going first. I think.
I think it just goes to show these cards are just like these cards that just floodgate you are just hard to balance. I don't know if I really like. Basically, okay. The reason why I say it's coin flip, it's not quite coin flip, but the chances are lower. But you're searching from a pool of like a smaller pool than your remaining like 35 cards. I don't know. I don't like it too much. Because it's just like, some searches will go through. It'll feel like shit. Some won't go through. And it'll also feel like shit, I don't know.
I think that's fine, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's too good. But it's better going second than it is going first, because you can just put it into play on your opponent's turn. Should not cause turn skips against regular hands. So this is the first. We're probably breaking this rule. This could cause some turn skips against regular hands because you might just brick. And if the card is too powerful, that's the thing that we're going to look at and say this is why this card is too powerful. Should have variable rates depending on the matchup. I think it does. Some decks search more than others. This is a thing we know. Should give the player having the non-engine used against them some recourse. So there is recourse, right? Because it is a card that sits in play, there are going to be ways to play through it. The trade-off is you got to find that, and it makes finding it harder. And then the most powerful one should be archetypal. We are following this rule here by attaching a pretty severe penalty to having this in play that constrains you to a pretty specific archetype, I would say. It's generic enough that maybe you could see play across a couple of different things, but we're trying to at least say, you've got to make some pretty concerted deck building choices around this. And exactly what that lock looks like, I would be totally willing to tweak based on what archetypes it's supposed to fit with. I said wind spellcaster as a starting point, but that's more of a placeholder for let's find the exact right lock to put on this card. So yeah, so that's Lockbird the Redeemed. I think that one sounds pretty interesting to me, honestly, and I think if you printed this, you could maybe ban Droll and Lockbird. So if we're looking on the bright side here, that's something to look at as well. Okay, so we are on to the seventh card. Seventh? Yeah, seventh card. Yeah. So one of the better pieces of non-engine that I think has been printed in recent years in terms of being interesting and cool is Forbidden Crown. I really like the way that Forbidden Crown plays, in large part due to the fact that while it casts a wide net in terms of the kinds of things that it is interacting with, none of the things that it is doing outside of the negate are like super obnoxious.
Reaction to John's reactions vid. Is he reacting to the same one? This is like an old one from my backlog.
On that turn, which I think is pretty interesting and cool. And then additionally, I think that the templating on all of the forbidden cards where they are,
I'm sure he loves outlays. Ermi
is good in terms of allowing the going second player to have game into large developed end boards. You can kind of
he's reacting to the new one.
Going to resolve this card, like this.
Hello, Don.
And so you can begin to construct a game plan around at least that effect working, and then going from there. And I think that with the prevalence of negates currently, and with the way that Konami has been designing cards, that having more of these unnegatable non-engine cards.
Hey, I had the idea first, okay? I was like, "Fuck this! I'm not playing." I saw how long it took.
The forbidden kind of cycle of cards, and
I'm kidding. On my side. Not that like anyone has any patent for reacting, all right? But like, I'm just saying I made the decision before.
Can't be countered or not allowing cards to be reacted to. This one actually.
Yeah, exactly.
The forbidden card. So this one is an instant for 2 and a green. It says destroy target artifact or enchantment, and it has split second, and split second breeds when this is on the stack, nothing else can go on the stack, basically. There are rules idiosyncrasies about split second I'm not going to get into, but essentially it's you put this card on the stack and no more spells can be put on the stack. So this one's pretty easy to template into Yu-Gi-Oh, I think, and I did a little bit of tweaking just to make it a little bit more powerful. So I made it a normal speed spell, and
isn't this unrespondable? What the?
That you could set going first. I felt like that was too powerful, so it's normal speed.
I mean, it's just destroy something. interesting, but
templated it slightly better.
we kind of have those cards already. So this better be interesting.
MST is not a playable card, and unrespondable MST would still not quite be good enough. So here's what I have it templated of. I have it as normal speed, destroy one spell or trap. If it was face up, destroy another. Neither player can activate cards in response to this. So the idea behind
I don't know. It's kind of boring.
against a deck that maybe sets up like continuous spell plus some kind of back row.
Well, the interesting thing is you can like, if your opponent activates a card, you know, face down trap or something, you can pop it in response.
Like if you're playing against, say, like,
But
something, and you know that they've only set, they have JJ Cooltoon, and they have, and you know
specifically activated effects.
You get to get both those things without them being able to activate either one or activate anything in response, which I think is pretty reasonable. I've named this one.
Okay, but the wording is like,
just to continue along that kind of trend. I think that because of this not being a quick play spell, you don't.
Yeah, the way he worded it is kind of whack.
Definitely an improvement on Mystical Space Typhoon or Cosmic Cyclone. Like, it's better than these cards for sure. But like, it's cliche, but like, modern problems require modern solutions, right? Like, the quality of cards and engines in the modern game is such that I think you really do need to start giving people more powerful tools. And importantly, this is unsearchable. It's definitely good, but against certain decks, it's going to just be a 1-for-1 normal speed MST, which is just okay a lot of the time, right? So let's look at it through the 5 principles. Should be better going second, but not unplayable going first.
Wait, this isn't a quick play. So the play I mentioned, it literally, you can't even pop a face up.
Against regular hands, it won't, right? Like, because it's a going second tool. Like, this is really a board breaker, not a hand trap. Should have variable rate.
I'm not too worried about the PSCT. Like, the card itself is even it doesn't allow responses. Like, even if it included the loophole. It's okay. It's whatever. Like, this card's whatever.
This is the one thing about the forbidden cards that I think you could point to, is that this kind of like unrespondable clause on them does make them a little bit more frustrating for the player who's having it used against them.
Like, I'm not upset that it has an unrespondable. I just think it's like kind of like uninspired.
Second to try and break boards, and you know, if you're going first and you've already built your end board, like, you've played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh already. You know, you don't necessarily, I think, feel all that hard.
No, okay, if it was quick play, it'd be more interesting to me, but maybe that's what he was intending to.
Yeah, that's Forbidden Circlet. That one was also,
and that wasn't clear.
I felt like this one was quite reasonable in a lot of ways. One of the better ones that I think honestly, which should just exist. This one just seems really good. So from one very reasonable forbidden card to one very not reasonable.
Just a power grip nightmare.
That I believe is too good, but I don't think I know quite enough about the game to be able to tell you exactly why it's too good or what decks would use this in a way that would feel particularly obnoxious. But this card in Magic is Supreme Verdict. This is 1 white, blue for a sorcery that can't be countered, that destroys all creatures. So I have templated this to Forbidden Chalice in Yu-Gi-Oh! I think that one doesn't exist yet. If it does, we'll find some other piece of silverware to name it after. So I have this as Dark Hole, but not respondable to, and then you have an additional lock on it of you cannot special summon from your
Forbidden Chalice. Okay, that one. That Yu-Gi-Oh card already exists. Look at that. I just find that amusing. All right, I just
Dark Hole, right? Like, obviously Tenpai wouldn't use this, but I think this is probably too good. Hence why I put a very stringent lock on it. But the argument is, for something like this existing, is that
destroy all monsters field,
or allowing players to build these end boards that just put up a bunch of negates. This would force players to try and build layered end boards that have ways to either buy back monsters or maybe end on monsters that aren't destroyed.
That already happens, for what it's worth. Like,
exist and potentially be playable at a high rate as a sideboard card for people going second would theoretically exact some amount of metagame pressure to transform the way that end boards are designed. I think that in practice, like, if you look at the way that many of the branded decks exist currently, this card might not even be a factor, because of the fact that, like, the branded cards like do so much when they are even sent to the graveyard. Maybe you just
Chalice.
This card might even not be good enough. I don't know, but to me, it sounded like an interesting idea, and I just wanted to see where else we could maybe push this idea of forbidden cards that are unrespondable, because I think that is one of the best to give the going second player access to, in order to guarantee that they at least get to take.
That's so funny. His concept of forbidden cards are unresponsible is because of droplet.
Going second, but not unplayable going first. I mean, if you get to your third turn,
that's pretty amusing.
Should not cause turn skips. It's a breaker. Doesn't cause turn skips. Should have a variable rate. This is going to be true. Certain decks are going to play through effects like Dark Hole better than others, and so it's variable, I think. Should give the player having the non-engine used against them some amount of recourse. It doesn't, and this is a downside for sure. You don't get any direct interaction with this while the game is going on. You had to have made those choices on your turn with how you built your end board, and maybe being forced to make those decisions around an unsearchable one is unpleasant. I could see that. And then lastly, the most powerful one should be archetypal. Again, maybe this one's supposed to be archetypal. Maybe that's the way you make it balanced. I don't know. This is arguably the one that I'm most curious to get your input and thoughts on, because when I was designing these and thinking about these, this was the one where I wrote it down and I have literally written on my document, this one is too good, probably. But the more I've talked about it and thought about it, maybe it's just not good enough. I'm honestly not sure. Okay, we're in the home stretch. So the next one that I have to talk about is Orcish Bowmasters. This is a 1 and a black.
Oh, I heard about this one.
From Magic the Gathering, and it has flash. When it
You can like
enters,
amass
deal
a
1
a
damage
bunch
to
of these guys or
Orc
something like
Army,
that.
which is a 0/0 token that gets +1/+1 counters, and so it gets 1 counter when you amass the orcs the first time when it enters. And then Orcish Bowmasters has this other line of text of whenever your opponent draws a card other than the card for their draw step, you can deal 1 damage to any target and amass 1, which allows you to grow your orc army. So I have templated this card into Yu-Gi-Oh as Fallen Archers. It's not archetypal. I could see it being archetypal though. Like if you wanted to make this
Card is added to your opponent's hand from anywhere. You control no cards. Quick effects. Special summon from his hand. Time of cards added from anywhere.
300. I didn't want it to be
Deals 500. Create a horde token.
Reasons, but I have it as quick effect. If a card is added to your opponent's hand from your hand, and you control no cards, you may special summon this card from hand as a hard once per turn. And also not as something you can do on your first turn. If you've already created your end board, you can't then just special summon this on top of it. And then the text on this card is anytime a card is added to your opponent's hand from anywhere, Psychic Archers, or Fallen Archers, sorry, deals 500 damage to that opponent. You create a Horde token, which is a level 2 Dark Monster. It's 0/0, has no attack or defense, with a Horde counter on it. If you already control a Horde token, add an additional Horde counter to the Horde. This token has 200 attack and defense per counter on it. And so
Well, it's for the grave effect, but like,
replacement for Droll Mockbird.
okay, it's very hard to tell
On how many times your opponent can search on
because it looks like this first line is the activation condition to summon it on your side of the field. But you just need to field this card. It's like that for hire card, Rex or whatever, that draws a card every time your opponent draws a card. That's what it looks like. This seems very abusable though. With that in mind, this might be too broken. Like, if you can field it if you can get it to the field.
Feeling a really like material recourse on your part. So the first search, you just get a monster, and it does nothing. So theoretically, if your opponent decides, I don't want to feed into this at all, they can choose not to. And if your opponent has a really search-heavy hand, they're potentially passing the turn at like 4,500 life points.
Oh yeah, it does trigger on your opponent's draw phase.
And what I like about this effect is that much like
this is very, very ridiculous, actually. Like, you can use it. It's usable going first.
Get this card played against you. You can decide how much you want to play into it or how much you want to try and play through it. And if you decide that that's not something your hand is super well set up to do, you can maybe end on a half board that doesn't do very much searching. But at the same time, if you decide, you know what, I can make a really good end board and I'm willing to pay 4,000 life points for the 8 searches I need to do so, well, that's fine. But now your opponent at least has...
Also, this one lets you, if your opponent adds cards from the graveyard as well, it also triggers.
I think this meets this requirement. It's obviously
like if you're under Fool, you just make one Link Spider, you create another token, and you burn them.
If you wanted to put it into play as part of your end board, and if it was archetypal, it might become part of your end board as well. Like that could be interesting. Should not cause turn skips against regular hands. I don't think it should. 500 damage to me felt like a fair amount. Where like in order for 500 to be a really meaningful number, like you've got to do 16 searches to lethal yourself with this. Like I don't think.
Yeah, this is not balanced. This is not. This needs to be set back.
Give the player having the non-engine used against them some amount of recourse. It matches this one as well. You get to control exactly how much you want to play into this. And again, you'll notice this is a common theme for me. I really like having the effects that are lingering to be things that are on the board that can be interacted with. And in particular, I like them being monsters because I think monster removal and monster negates are by far the most commonly played thing. And so as a result, I think that you're most likely to be able to have reasonable outs to these cards without having to make super exceptional deck building choices. So yeah, so I think both players.
Oh, you forgot the typing also, which is pretty important.
Want to make this card just generic. Like that would be miserable. Everyone would be playing it. I think, or in the metagames where it was good, everyone would be playing it, and I don't think you would want that. I don't necessarily think that would be super interesting or dynamic. So yeah, so that's Orcish Bowmasters / Fallen Archer. Bowmasters is a card that in Magic has really done a bit of a pseudo rotation. That's something we've talked about on the channel before.
You forced the trigger with exchange? Wow, that's fun.
Particularly in Legacy, have really changed around the existence of Orcish Bowmasters. There are a lot of decks that incidentally draw cards in Legacy in particular, and Bowmasters represents
Bowmaster, yeah.
Clock and really challenging to interact with clock as well because it creates 2 bodies and things like this. If you ever tag an opponent's brainstorm with a Bowmasters, you're like dealing with 4 damage and making 5 power for 2 mana, which is quite powerful in the context of that format. So it's obviously a very powerful card there, and I think this sounds like a reasonably powerful card in the Yu-Gi-Oh context as well. But at the same time, I think that making powerful cards is cool, right? Like that's the thing that gets people excited and engaged in the game. And so I don't
this is just straight up broken.
You just need to make sure that you're being attentive to their potential.
Unless the lingering effect is applied for when it's summoned from hand.
a different
On the
one, and
opponent's
that's I
turn?
wanted to try to fit one of the
Because
stats
to me, it
cards,
reads like a
from Magic
continuous
into
effect that's
Yu-Gi-Oh!
applied
This is
when
always
it's on
kind
the
of an interesting
field.
discussion that gets had where we talk about, oh, is Ash Blossom Force of Will, and it's not. And one of the things
Bruh.
that often comes up when you're having that dialogue with people who play both games is that people say, well, actually, Force of Will more closely matches the Herald cycle.
No, it didn't say that.
So,
Well,
uh,
okay, it's just like
and
very,
I
very
wanted to add
unpolished.
something in that cycle and take a card from Magic and template it in there. So the most obvious one to me is Solitude, which is from Modern Horizons. Solitude is a 3/2 with Flash and Evoke, which means you
Can we
cast
go
a
back
creature
to
card
it?
from your hand. And when it enters,
Sure.
you get to exile target creature. And so yeah, so that's Orcish Bow.
Yeah, here you go. Card is added to your opponent's hand from anywhere, and you control no cards. Quick effect: you may stretch summon this card from your hand. Anytime a card is added to your opponent's hand from anywhere, Fallen Archer deals 500 to that opponent. You create a Horde token, level 2 Dark 0/0 with a Horde counter on it. Control a Horde token and an additional Horde counter. This token has 200 attack defense per Horde counter on it. Yeah, that's a little bit OP. Yeah, that's a little bit OP.
With people who play both games is that people say, well, actually, Force of Will more closely matches the Herald cycle. Herald of orange light, green light, purple light. And I wanted to add something to that cycle and take a card from Magic and template it in there. So
Oh yeah, my favorite card's Orange Light. I love Orange Light. We need more cards like that.
3/2 with Flash and Evoke, which means you can cast it by pitching a white card from your hand. And when it enters, you get to exile target creature, and its controller gains life equal to its power. Basically, Swords to Plowshares. And so I've templated this as Herald of White Light. Weird name, maybe we could workshop that one. I have it as a level 2 monster.
Summons a token? It's a separate sentence.
The same as all the other heralds, and the same summoning condition as well. So when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can send this card in one of their fairy.
When your opponent activates a monster effect, send this and one other fairy to your graveyard, banish target monster.
As banish that card. And so the idea here is that while you are giving up the negate, you are getting.
Your opponent activates send one this and one other. Why is another Orange Light?
Has a fairly
Herald of White Light.
That you would structure your turn if you're the person playing into it, because there are a lot of decks in the current metagame that do look to loop resources, and losing something like that early on is potentially relatively detrimental to their loop. Additionally, like if you look at things like Cool Tune, getting like
it doesn't negate, but still, it's just like
names sent to banishment. It can be kind of challenging to get a second one into rotation super easily in a way that makes sense. Maybe it's fine. People will probably find lines. But again, the other thing about the heralds is that they're often going plus when they're activated, right? So that's the other part of this, is that this is just a different kind of effect to give access to these kinds of fairy decks. I don't think currently maybe Fairy Tale is a little bit scary and would be too powerful to give this effect to. But overall, I think that this is the kind of thing that you could add that would be pretty reasonable. And importantly, it's not just a negate, which I think is one of the.
It's like it's not once per turn. You can still use this going second. I mean, going first.
My theory here is that by instead making it a banishment, you are increasing the quality of the removal effect, but you are getting rid of the more obnoxious negate portion of the effect. So if we analyze it through the 5 guiding principles, we have
like it's very, very good to draw. I mean, Orange Light, I believe, got limited, but like improving the hand quality of like the hair, potential fairies you can play is also notable.
On your first play, like that would be frustrating. I think that's a reason to look at this card as maybe being too good.
Fairy token out of his back. Oh, he's just whatever. Okay, he's not as informed, I guess.
Thing banished, or maybe have something along a chain banished and it not be the end of the world. Should have variable rates.
But this was definitely, you would probably see this more in like Gem Knight
want stuff put in banishment, where you're gonna have to side these out
with Eva and shit like that.
Should give the player having the non-engine used against them some amount of recourse. This one is tough, right? Like, because it's a fairy and it would be in these archetypes that are potentially searching it, maybe you would know it was coming, and so you could potentially play around it in that regard. But in general, I do think this is another one where we're pushing the envelope.
MD.
And then the most
Hope you get in. I've already given up. I've given up on maintenance.
Design spaces, potentially, so it's not just going to be playable across the board. Overall, though, Solitude is a card that serves as this really interesting kind of. In Magic, floodgates aren't a bad thing. So
I think some of those were interesting. A little bit bogged down. There's a couple impulses in there, which is just like, okay.
Really dramatically outsized monster creatures early, and it even has implications against a bunch of the combo decks in the format because many of those combo decks are running through creatures, and so as a result, it's a pretty interesting card. In Yu-Gi-Oh, I think that kind
Dang,
of
there's some why is my? I
I
probably will have to restart my computer after I
so I guess to close the video, because
finish
we're
this.
10 cards now. I'd like to know a couple of things. What did you think? How many of these do you think you could print today, and they would be?
What do the comments say?
Fair, balanced, and cool. I think I have myself personally at a solid. I think I hit on maybe 7.
I need MBT. Cabal Therapy should banish itself when activated from yard.
Oh,
that's true. I just assumed it would do that. But yeah, the fact that it doesn't do that is pretty dumb.
But I think 7 and 10 you could probably
but I assume there was a once per turn.
Which ones would not? I think these kinds of exercises are really
Forbidden Chalice exists.
It's easy to talk about the cards that already exist and evaluate kind of like the game design aspects of those cards. But one of the best ways I think to really get in the weeds of why certain effects feel certain ways or where we're finding pain points in gameplay is to try and design new cards that would theoretically solve some of those stopgaps and evaluate what they're doing differently from the things that already exist that we like or we don't like. And so as a result, I felt like this would be a really fun video. If you stayed all the way to the end, it means you've stayed for quite a long time, and I appreciate it. I hope you'll subscribe if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Additionally, if we are at the end of the video, it means that my patrons are on screen. You can support me on Patreon through the description in the link below.
All right.
Sorry. And I really hope you will. It means a lot to me. Without further ado, I will see you in the next one.
Big Buh. Hello, Kosugi. What's next? I don't think we're watching this one. I'm getting rid of this one. All right, well, okay. The joy of physical games. I'm definitely a physical game guy.
If you remember tearing open
I don't mind digital games too much. Is MD finally working? I don't think so. I think it got extended until like 20 minutes from now. Let me see. Buh. Hold on, I'm opening it. 15 more minutes.
the wrapping paper on Christmas morning to reveal that one game you've been asking for all year, reading the instruction manual to your new game on the car ride home, and using toothpaste to bring that scratched disc back to life, then you grew up during the era of physical games. An era that might be coming to a close, with Sony looking towards an increasingly digital future.
Yeah, I did hear about this. I heard there was like backlash.
Take a look back at what owning games physically actually meant. And I think that for many of us, our love of physical games can be traced back to Christmas mornings. Sneaking downstairs and seeing all these game-shaped presents neatly wrapped under the tree. You pick it up and take a few seconds to...
One of the earliest presents I remember was getting Pokemon Coliseum for one of my birthdays. To be honest, I couldn't believe I got it because we weren't that well off. Like I only had a GameCube because one of my aunts like gifted it to me. Hello, Darkwing Duck.
Maybe you'd shake the game to feel the disc inside. And yes, I did have big hands and hairy arms as a child. It's a condition. Anyway, then came the slow reveal, peeling back the wrapping paper one little bit at a time until...
Yeah, I don't really like... This is like not that crazy. Like...
And you can use the energy sword. And the funny thing is, you weren't even in a rush to play the game. First, you turn it over and read every word on the back, look at every screenshot, every bullet point, every little feature the developers had promised was going to change your life.
This is cute too, you know, like... I mean, it's part of the experience for opening physical media, but... I'm not sure I glaze it this hard, though.
Adventures, fun, and experiences that you'd never forget. And it does make me wonder what this entire thing would look like 20 years from now. Merry Christmas, Billy. We've got you Grand Theft Auto 7. Here's a piece of paper with a download code. Don't get me wrong, the end result is exactly the same. You still get to play the game, but it's undeniable that a little bit of that magic does get lost along the way. But Christmas certainly didn't have a monopoly on new physical video game joy. There was also the day when a new game, you know, the one you've been saving your...
The entire day after opening it? Yeah, that was for me. Well, I didn't open it, but like, I played Blue Mystery Dungeon on the DS in one sitting. I think I spent like 21 hours like beating Blue Mystery Dungeon.
Back to the car with the box in your hands, feeling like you just made the biggest purchase of your life. The journey home became a little ritual itself. You turn the box over.
Black and White was the one I also did in one sitting on release.
Comparing the screenshots to the old games. Eventually, you'd open the box, and there it was, the cartridge. And Pokemon games always felt that little bit more special because they had colored cartridges. Then came what I think was a genuine...
Hey, that was pretty unique about Ruby, Emerald, Sapphire, Crystal.
It's almost like the developers knew that millions of kids around the world were going to read them before they got started with the game, so they went above and beyond, especially with the Generation 1 manuals, which...
it was an all-nighter.
The cover made it look like an old leather-bound field guide. The pages were filled with taped-on notes and little sketches, and it genuinely felt like we were being welcomed into the world before we even switched...
This was cute, okay, but like, okay, we're not like, okay, this is like...
From the 90s and 2000s really were an art form. Many would have their own unique covers, themes, layouts, and even typefaces. The Halo games are a great example of this. The first game had this blue theme that kind of looked like...
It is a nice touch that they have these, but I'm just like...
on the cover and featured an orange theme. Wind Waker's manual looked like it was printed on old parchment with ancient symbols.
But this is just like older. It's like you can still have physical media that doesn't have these, but this is a very specific time in
There was even a notes page at the end, as was the style at the time. And look, we even had an ad for season 3 of the show on DVD.
Let's go. Level 60, 70 blades again, A.
We had a pretty conventional manual for the time, with the 2 pages at the back saved as in-world classified ads. These tongue-in-cheek advertisements would actually tie into the locations, characters, and story points throughout the game. Vice City took this to the next level by integrating the in-world ads across the manual, along with banners for the radio stations. But things would arguably peak with San Andreas, which presented its manual as a local business advertiser's guide, which seamlessly integrated tutorials, tips, and instructions on how to play the game.
Yeah, this is a very specific time, though. I don't feel like... I think it's cute to be nostalgic about this time, but, like... You could still purchase, like, Switch cartridges, you know? It's not the same, for sure, but, like...
They also doubled up as a giant poster, which inevitably ended up blue tacked on somebody's bedroom wall. Now, don't get me wrong, I completely understand why manuals disappeared. Modern games teach you...
I know, but this is just, like, a very, very unique experience, so I don't know, like,
Manuals weren't just there to explain the controls, they were part of the excitement. They made opening a new game feel like the start of an adventure long before you even switched on the console. And then there were the midnight launches, queuing outside a store in the freezing...
I don't have any, like, nostalgia for this at all.
Like Halo 3, Modern Warfare 2, or GTA 5, you know exactly what I mean.
This is a very, very specific experience for... I actually don't think most people experience this.
Simply pre-order the game, pre-download it in the background, and it unlocks the moment the clock strikes midnight. And honestly, that's the better way of doing it for most people. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to queue outside a shop for every new release.
Out of all these, I don't... Okay, that's like the least... It's different, but I don't care too much about having... At least Steam makes things convenient. This is Millennial and Gen X experience. Yeah, I was just like, okay. It's not... Okay, like, I love physical cartridges. I love it so much because, you know, you get a feel in your hand, you get to put it in, you know, you get to swap it out for another... You know, those are kind of nice touches. You know, it's a little bit, you know, less... It's a little bit more personal, I guess. But I don't mind the convenience of downloading too much. I think what pisses me off is when I get physical media. Like, okay, I think Marvel vs. Capcom 3, there was like a PlayStation 3 I had. And when you put in the fucking disc, you had to wait like 2 hours to download all the updates for that disc. So I'm just like, bruh, are you kidding me? So I don't know what it was, like some anti-piracy software or some shit that they were doing. That shit was like OD. Nowadays, I don't mind the releases, like Pocopia DLC and stuff like that coming out right now. There's people like... I could have played Pocopia now that I think about it. Why didn't I play Pocopia? Whatever. I pretty much decided not to play it.
An event out of it, who enjoy the atmosphere, the camaraderie, and walking home with the game in their hands. That's an experience that simply disappears if we move...
React schedule, I know.
Now, the funny thing about buying physical games is they rarely stayed with just one person. It was almost a rite of passage growing up to lend and borrow games amongst friends. Every friendship group had that...
See, that's more part of the experience. Like, a more ubiquitous part of the...
PlayStation, after all. If you didn't have a friend like that, you usually just pull your collections together. You lend your Budokai 3 to a friend, and they'd lend you their Wind Waker. You trade MGS1 for Final Fantasy 8, and it meant that we all got to play far more games that we could afford on...
I did mostly borrowing.
Games growing up are the ones I never...
I didn't own that many games myself.
Although, let's be honest, the weekend usually turned into about 3 weeks. Or in the case of this copy of Pokemon Silver that my friend Tom lent me, 25 years. Borrowing games meant that we'd get turned on to entirely new franchises, and then when we'd eventually get older and had our own money to spend, we'd go out and buy the sequels, the remasters...
There's a lot of GBA shovelware that I played because of other people's collections. There's a lot of shovelware in that fucking... The GBA has so much... So does the DS, but I played less of that.
Half the fun was just browsing the shelves at GameStop or Game here in the UK and picking up games you'd never heard of and taking a chance on a game simply because it looked cool or because San Andreas still cost £30 and you couldn't afford it, so you'd settle with the non-movie Hobbit game instead. That's not to say the digital storefronts can't help you discover new games, they absolutely can, but there is something about physically wandering around a shop, spotting an interesting cover on the which is something that scrolling through the Steam Summer Sale just doesn't quite capture. Of course, when you're borrowing games from a friend or buying them secondhand, you will get some copies that had definitely seen better days. For example, a copy of Final Fantasy VII.
What is your most memorable?
At the end of the first disc. Naturally, this would result in you trying to get the scratches out using a variety.
Probably Pokemon Black and White.
One time or another, a few of my friends swore by deodorant, aftershave, and if all that failed, just raiding your parents' liquor cupboard and rubbing some of that on.
I have no. Who does that? Seriously, who does that? Who raided their fucking liquor?
There's no better feeling than bringing a game back from the dead with a bit of elbow grease, hope, and a tube.
I've never done
Plus,
this.
no amount of toothpaste will bring your digital game back if the online store decides to pull it. I'm looking at you, Deadpool. And once you finally nurse that disc back to health, it goes straight back on the shelf, which brings me to another thing I love about physical games, the collections. Whether it's a handful of childhood favorites tucked away in the corner of a bookshelf, an entire wall of games, or a room dedicated to nothing but gaming, I don't think that people collect physical games just because they like looking at plastic boxes. I think a collection says something about the person who owns it. In a weird way, it becomes a snapshot of a person's life. You can see the games they grew up with, the genres they discovered as they got older, and the series that stayed with them throughout the years. My younger brother's collection is a perfect example of this. You can literally watch him grow up as we go up the shelf. It starts with the Lego games before transitioning to the racing and sports games, and then a bunch of different shooters. Yes, being able to own a physical game means that you can own it forever, and that's a great reason to collect, but I think there's more to it. It's about preserving a little piece of your own history. Every game on that shelf reminds you of a different Christmas, a different birthday, a different summer holiday, or a different period in your life. It's something a digital library just can't...
95% of those were just random arcade games.
A shelf, on the other hand, sits there every day,
Crash Nitro
always on
Kart.
your phone. And it doesn't even need to be a
Progress
collection.
Ever
It could
Saved.
be a single game that you completely forgot
That's
about.
probably a lot of
Maybe
memory.
all of your old stuff. Maybe it's a battered Game Boy cartridge or an old PlayStation case that you haven't seen in 20 years. Or maybe it's that one game that's traveled with you from your childhood bedroom to college to your first flat and every single house since. Whichever one it is, physical games have a wonderful habit of finding their way back into your life.
Oh my
when
god,
you
I
least
hate the
expect
Game
it.
Boy
It's the
Advance.
same reason people keep old toys, VHS tapes, and family photo albums. Physical objects become
I preferred the SP because of the backlight. The Game Boy Advance requiring batteries was also obnoxious.
Will still be there, ready to transport you back to a special time in your life. And I think future generations deserve the opportunity to experience the joy of physical games. But that's just my take. If you've enjoyed this more reflective, narrative-based style of video, then check out my book Loading Screens and Memory Cards, where I delve into more shared experiences of growing up gaming in the 90s and 2000s. And in the meantime, please also leave a comment below with your thoughts. What are your favorite memories of physical games, and what's your take on the potential all-digital future? As always, thanks for watching. Please consider supporting me on Patreon, and a big thanks to my existing patrons.
Okay, that was just a quaint nostalgia trip. We're never getting physical media back. Sag. All right, Musician King, the card that saved fusions.
Volume 6, released November 18th, 1999, was a pivotal set in 1999 Yu-Gi-Oh! The previous Booster 5 had some neat additions, yet nothing groundbreaking. So the difference between the two releases was more noticeable than not. One key difference being a specific fusion monster that would give the purple-oriented deck a fresh coat of, well, purple paint. It's about time we talked about Volume 6's Musician King deck. Wait, Musician King, you say?
I heard Musician King is like a reference to a Black Sabbath album or something. Like one of the songs has to do with the witch or something like that. There's something like that. So that's why it has the fusion materials it does. Well, I'm curious what direction this video is going, though.
For a while now, usable fusions were slim pickings. While some materials were easy to get, like for Flame Swordsman, many fusions weren't worth it. On the other side, usable ones like Black Skull Dragon meant you still needed to run Red Eyes Black Dragon, which was otherwise a bad card. I'm not saying the new Lady of Faith, needed for King, is anything exceptional. However, the combo potential we're about to get into made it all worth it. A lot of this is amplified due to the new Witch of the Black Forest, in addition to Sangan, that can search even when sent from the hand, including Polly. While it was later addressed by Konami, at the time, everyone interpreted the effects to be as they read. Anyways, let's jump into the deck profile. Alright, so let's talk about the Musician King deck. So, yeah, Musician King, pretty silly concept, as kind of a lot of the fusion decks in Series 1 tend to be, right? There's Gaia, Black Skull Dragon, which we've talked about on the channel. Maybe we'll talk about Gaia one day. If you want to see that, let me know. But, you know, typically, starting off, it's like, yeah, you know we're going to have the two summon skulls, at the very least, right? You could run one, you could run three, you know, whichever one you kind of prefer, if you want to be a bit more bricky, or if you want to have more firepower, you know, it's ultimately up to you. But I think Skull at 2 is a good card, especially in this era of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where the game is relatively slower. So you have more opportunities to get out these big guys, you know, in addition to, like, Revival and dumping and stuff like that. And the same thing applies to Gemini Elf, the premier beater of this format. You know, we've talked about before, I believe it was the Booster 4 deck profile, which is Patreon exclusive. There's a lot of beaters at this time, and not all of them are equal. In fact, almost none of them are equal. But Gemini Elf stands on a pillar of their own, simply due to their 1900 attack. So that's great for its simplistic use in the simplistic version of Yu-Gi-Oh! So why not run 3? There's little reason to run less unless you're running a very more gimmicky deck, as you can play in this format because the card pool has evolved to that point. But we are playing a little more beaters in this one. We are playing not 1, not 2, but 3 mechanical chasers. Chaser, only 50 less than Gemini Elf, whereas some of the lower attackers, right, like Login, Giant Red Sea Snake, if you go further, Axe Raider, this beats out all of them. And if you're being picky about your beaters, run Mechanical Chaser, right? Don't run the other ones, especially with Machine King now a card existing. You may have the argument of running something else, due to Machine King's effect, but I think generally that 50 extra attack is going to get you what you need to, right? Machine King is the most popular card compared to Summon Skull, because Summon Skull is just inherently better. So Mechanical Chaser is good, especially for a deck like this, where it is more beatdown oriented than you might think. You might think Musician King and think, what is this deck really about? And we'll get to that, but keep in mind that these beaters are a key part to the deck strategy. For the fusions, we do need to run Lady of Faith, which is one of the 2 requirements for Musician King. Lady of Faith, not really good, right? Doesn't have good attack, doesn't have good defense, but when we get to the other cards, it can be searched out via anything, basically, which is nice. If you need to summon it, if you need to set it, you're able to. So that's a benefit it gets over a card like Red Eyes Black Dragon, or even Summon Skull, or the previous fusion with Curse of Dragon and Gaia the Fierce Knight. Lady of Faith gets that immediate use that you could use, which is a benefit, right? It's a silver lining on a silver-haired card. Speaking of the ladies, Magician of Faith, really good for this, especially.
She's delayed. I know it's.
We can recur polymerization for potential plays. It helps turbo things out. It helps you not have to rely on.
Oh, it sounds like a rough.
Really good element.
Yeah, okay, I see the extension.
Rely on one certain aspect of the dueling field. It can interact with the graveyard in that capacity, or potentially get certain cards for more pushes, as this deck wants to do. But new cards, now we have Sangan. Remember Sangan? Yeah, he's at 3 in this format. Now Sangan can get Lady of Faith. It can't get any of the beaters, unfortunately, but it can't get any of your more technical cards out. This includes Witch of the Black Forest, and I'm only talking about this immediately after because they're basically yin and yang with each other, where Witch will get you basically anything in your deck, because we're not running any defenders, so it's going to grab Gemini Elf or Summon Skull or Lady of Faith, and it's the other material for Musician King. And in this era of Yu-Gi-Oh!, the way Witch and Sangan were both worded was that they didn't really care how they got to the graveyard. So you could use a card like Graceful Charity or Polymerization to send them from the hand to the grave, and their effects will trigger. Now, it's important to note that Konami did come out with a ruling in like December, January, around that time, in one of like the magazines about how they're supposed to be used. But that's way after the fact. The matter is that people would read the cards as they were, unless Konami had a ruling. It's different than something like Swords of Healing Light, where it was fairly quick when Konami came out with that ruling for this. But this kind of took a while for these because it became such a problem. I kind of have the suspicion that they intended to be how they worked initially, and then retroactively changed when they started seeing how the meta was evolving for that. That's just a theory, a Yu-Gi-Oh! Theory. But if you want to play this, like, historically, yeah, that's how they worked. It's how the cards read, so it makes sense that they would function like that. And this makes this deck only better, that it has those higher combo potentials of being able to search more things out. And it's also what made Exodia really deadly, and we'll talk about Exodia eventually. But the Change of Heart, now that Witch is in probably...
It just seems like really basic.
Use that off. Now your opponent will get the search, but, you still are able to...
So you're just searching, like, Summon Skulls, I guess?
Good chance your opponent's not playing Lady of Faith. But you could run other...
I guess that works because you have like
if you wanted to,
the tribute fodder with Machine King or Musician King.
Something like Black Skull Dragon is going to be pretty low. And then Dark Hole, currently limited, destroys all cards, which in this case can be good because Witch and Sangan can't get their effects off. Keep in mind, same thing with your opponent, so that can be deadly. And Graceful Charity, as mentioned earlier, is really nutty here because you can turbo out into searches and get into your fusion material cards. So Graceful is so pivotal here, as it basically is in every deck, let's be honest. It's such a good card. And it only gets stronger here and gets more useful in a deck that really needs certain combo pieces to achieve these Musician King plays. That, again, doesn't necessarily need to get into Musician King to be a functional deck, but it definitely helps, as we'll talk about. Monster Reborn lets you use your searchers again, lets you get back into your fusion material if you need to. Once you fusion summon Musician King successfully, you can revive it with Monster Reborn if you need that extra attack. Everything that we've been talking about in recent deck profiles just compounds in strength by Volume 6, which makes Volume 6 a rather groundbreaking set, compared to Booster 5, as we mentioned in the intro. Polymerization, I'm actually using this alt art because new thing about Volume 6, it reprinted Poly, I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the alternate art that actually includes a different set ID compared to the original one, which is very rare. I think the only other instance I can recall that they did this was with the Red Arcana Dark Magician. So I just want to show off this other polymerization. Which art do you prefer? Let me know. I kind of like this one because it's the one I remember from the anime and always thought, why do we get this LOB art one when it's not the one in the anime. It doesn't make sense to me. But it's cool because it matches kind of dark aesthetic. Running 3, maybe you could argue...
AMAs, yeah.
Running 3,
Gotta wait.
You may not want to brick into it. For this kind of gimmicky deck, and for the sake of we're running, Pot of Greed and Graceful Charity, there's a good chance we're going to get into all our cards when we need to, and if not, pretty gosh darn quick. 4, 6, minus the 3, Steiner math, right? You get a lot of cards, basically, which only compounds, word of the day, into this fusion build. And Raigeki helps. Same issue with Darkhold, though. It can possibly trigger your opponent's searchers, but that's just a risk you're going to have to take if you want to take those pushes. And
Forbidden Crown, yes. It's all Forbidden Crown.
Basically, you want Tribute to the Doomed to get as many aggressive pushes, destroy as much of the opponent's monsters as possible. It's more selective than Fissure, and we can pitch our searchers to combo into more draws. Yeah, this thing also combos with Witch and Sangan. It's kind of insane. And then talking about the fusion deck here, we're only going to showcase these 3 cards, which is 1 Musician King, 2 Musician King, and 3, the whole band. The band is all here. We got Ringo, we got George, and we got Paul. I guess we can't have all 4 here. Oh well. That would have been an interesting thing if Yu-Gi-Oh! At some early point played around with the idea of having like a 4 limit thing. Like
George got chosen, yeah.
Here we are. Musician King, 1750.
Okay, I kind of see this deck, how this deck works.
With, getting itself out as a special summon.
The payoff isn't super flashy, so I'm not sure why I expected that.
Monster Reborn, and then there's Poly. That's roughly it. And because of the combo potentials and everything, as we'll talk about in the combo section after we talk about the side deck, Musician King actually can do a lot. And the fact that we can play a deck that's relatively reasonable in this era of Yu-Gi-Oh! That we wouldn't really see when this card was released in the TCG in Metal Raiders, right? Barring later like insta-fusion plays that you would see from this level 5 light spellcaster. So the fact we're seeing Musician King is really fun, and it's a different flavor of fusion than what we saw with Black Skull Dragon, which was an evolution of the Gaia, which is to say that it is just a purple beatdown deck. And it's kind of the same, but it feels different. It feels
No gems, Sag.
Abilities the deck can do and like kind of the lower attack.
What are you trying to craft? Crowns?
Before you wanted the strong stuff. You didn't want to play anything weaker. So Musician King, fun stuff. Wish it had a higher rarity. Oh well. All right, and that was the main deck and extra deck. Onto the side deck. I'm talking about 4 cards here, one of which is Morphing Jar. Morphing Jar is good to deal with...
the Fairy Tale.
Hand-heavy decks.
Damn.
Exodia. Maybe helps in like a deck destruction if you're good at playing around that. Or any...
Plus 30, yeah, I saw.
Hit, certain opposing fusion decks if you go about that. There's different things you can do with this, as well as Needleworm, right, whichever one you kind of prefer. Harpy's Feather Duster is good against any card that uses back row, stuff like maybe like Mass Virus or beatdown decks that might use more battle trap stuff like kunai, reinforcements, that type of stuff. Just deal with more back row things in general. It's good to have. Swords of Everything Light, again, good against any sort of beatdown deck. Lets you see face down cards. It has uses. It can stall you out if you need to. Maybe consider running in the main, right? Maybe cut a poly for a swords. It's an option. And then for any other trap stuff, World Decree is a good way to just shut all them off, especially in this deck when we're not really running any traps at all. We're running 0 in the main, ladies and metalfish. We're not running trap wholeness. You very well could if you want, or maybe some other battle traps. It's up to you, but generally speaking, World Decree is better in a deck that doesn't rely on traps as much as something like Mass Virus or good stuff Beat does. And then in terms of combos, combos are kind of fascinating. So if we take out a Witch and a Poly...
Maintenance still, yes.
So basically, an instance like this, right? You have both...
Okay, like at least this deck seems to be able to pull off its...
To fuse these two, into your Musician King...
I wonder if you do... Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm over...
Get you into... maybe you need a beater. Maybe you need a higher beater. Or maybe, you know what, you need another Lady of Faith.
Overestimating how often you can get to Lady of Faith.
A card on the field already. So if you do this from a hand, you get this guy out, you contribute him.
Yeah.
So now you got a free summon skull.
The free summon skull is pretty interesting.
Normal summon a Gemini elf, and now you have this additional pressure in, right? I mean, potentially you can even run like Ultimate Offering, pay 500 more, tribute for that, or get something else out. So that's some really cool plays you can do with this deck, and it's kind of the bread and butter of it, right? You kind of want to fuse from the hand as much, right? Even if you fuse on the field, right, with a Witch or Lady of Faith, one or the other, and you get this out, well, now you got a 1750 attack. It's not going to be over like a Gemini elf, but it's still a respectable attack in terms of just getting damage in. Could it be better? Sure, and this may be a reason why you might want to run a battle trap like reinforcements or kunai with chain. But it's just a little tech you can do in, and again, Witch gets out like so much, right? Gemini Elf, Summon Skull, Lady of Faith. It gets out Sangan, Magician of Faith, Mechanical Chaser. Can get out another Witch. It literally gets out every single monster you're running. Sangan does not, unfortunately. Sangan only gets out Lady of Faith, Witch, another Sangan, and Magician of Faith. So these are the only things you're getting out with a Sangan, but it's still a good amount, right? If you need to get back into Witch somehow, you can use that.
Yeah,
combo
Sangan
line, like
switches the other
Sangan
two
into Witch,
pieces
into
for
Faith,
Musician
or
King.
whatever you need at the time. So it's a very versatile fusion deck. Whereas before it was just like summon and hope you can beat down as fast as possible. Now you have a more fluid motion in your deck to get those plays going. So when it comes to other decks, let's talk about three specific.
Wait, wasn't this about whether Musician King saved Yu-Gi-Oh? This is just the deck profile.
Just generically good cards, maybe more like battle traps, in favor of like some polymerization in like Lady Faith. You might see maybe a Law Jin, or you might see another Summon Skull, or like some other flip monsters, or like Defenders. Just generally, good stuff, as I say, right? It's not necessarily need to be a beatdown deck, but it kind of leans towards that with a more of tech choices than anything really, and that's why I'm having a battle trap represent that. We also have a Mask Virus. Mask Virus. I can't talk. So Mask Virus is good because, well, it takes out all the beaters. Downside, you're playing relatively weak monsters, but now with Mass Sorcerer around, that can't be searched out, as well as this being able to trigger off of Sangan, it does get a boost in this format. So you definitely have to be careful about this. And then lastly, there's everyone's favorite, Exodia. I know we haven't talked about like a deck profile yet, but we will soon enough. It's kind of that lurking legend hiding around, especially with all the draw power now with like Pot of Greed and Skelengel and Graceful Charity, and especially now with the Searchers. It's a very deadly deck, so you do have to keep in mind Exodia, especially in Volume 6. If you weren't looking at this thing in the V5 era, you're definitely looking at it now. Compared to Black Skull Turbo, this new brand of fusion strategy meant for a more synergistic deck. The ability to combo for a variety of plays with searches and additional summons was a definite highlight of this Volume 6 era, an era where the status quo was still similar to the meta beforehand. It's just now everything is inherently faster thanks to the two searchers. The fusion strategy only gets upgrades as Series 1 marches on, so clearly Konami were on something here. As such, next time we'll be tackling Booster 6's upgrade on fusions.
Dude, this was actually titled
it'll be an exclusive.
The Card That Saved Fusions. Never mind. No. Okay. Alright, I mean, that was cute. The Musician King's pretty cute. But yeah, I thought he was going to talk more about... I don't know. I thought, okay, it was just a deck profile. I thought that was going to be like a history lesson or something. Holy, dude. Karibo videos take so long. All right, let me get rid of this. All right, this is one of the cards. The Fantastic card is a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Okay, so I know the title of this video is a bit weird, but trust me, there is a method to my madness, and I want to show today in this video why the problems presented by the Fantasticar from Magic's newest Commander set are actually very similar to some of the problems that we see fairly routinely materialize in the Yu-Gi-Oh metagame. And I think that there's actually even two ways to talk about it. I think the Fantasticar is very similar to a Yu-Gi-Oh card in terms of how it plays in-game, and I also think that the philosophical approach and the release of the card has a similar kind of feel to how Yu-Gi-Oh releases tend to work as well. So I want to first give some context on Fantasticar, talk about what's going on with this card. Ironically, this is like the second time that there's been drama around a Fantasticar card in like the last year, which is kind of one of those like, if I had a nickel for every time something like this happened, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it is weird that it's happened twice. And for reference, Marvel Snap had its own Fantasticar drama about a year ago at this point. That wasn't necessarily related so much to gameplay as it was related to questions around the monetization model of Marvel Snap, and I won't talk about it a ton here by any means, but it is kind of funny that it's happened twice. So what's going on with Fantasticar?
End the maintenance. Only you can end the maintenance.
It is an incredibly powerful artifact. For those who are not aware, it's going to be on screen right now, but it's a 3
Oh man, still more 20 more minutes.
It's a 4/4.
All right, Fantasticar. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may have the Fantasticar become an artifact creature until end of the turn. Whenever you cast your 4th non-creature spell each turn, you may sacrifice the Fantasticar. Create 4/4 colorless construct artifact creature tokens with flying and haste. That sounds kind of powerful.
And has the text flying. When you cast a non-creature spell, you
It's
have to have
over?
the fantastic card become an artifact creature until end of turn. Meaning
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't
staggering right
like
now.
regular vehicles do, which is a bit strange, but obviously it was always going to be a vehicle. It's literally a car. And then it has the additional text, and this is the important one. When you cast your 4th
The cards are in
non-creature spell
some
each
series.
turn,
You don't want to
you may
play
sacrifice
as
the fantastic card. If you do, create
the
4
Fantastic
4/4
Four.
colorless construct artifact tokens with flying and haste. This comes pretty close to just ending the game on its own, obviously, and that's a big part of why this card feels so oppressive. So what are the issues with the card? Because it is showing up in high play rates in both Legacy and obviously Vintage, and those are the only competitive formats that it's legal. So obviously, it could only be showing up there. I will say anecdotally, I think if it was playable in Modern, you would see a similar.
The 11 variants Spider-Man. Let's
one of the
go.
issues with it, issue number one with it is that it is a combo card that is really, really not all in any way. And so part of the problem I think with the Fantastic card that you're seeing realized by a lot of players is the fact that it does everything. You can, if you're in a matchup where going all in, trying to sacrifice it to make the 4/4/4 seems bad, you can always just kind of play one non-creature spell a turn and get in for 4 flying. And that is, in some matchups, going to be an effective enough game plan on its own that you can win the game that way. Importantly, this also allows these Fantastic card decks to play through hate pretty effectively if your opponent is able to put down a Deafening Silence or something of this ilk. If you just put Fantastic in play and then animate it each turn and attack, that is going to kind of like naturally create this plan B that combo decks are often looking for, especially in Legacy. And it's done so in a way where your main combo card is also your main B plan, which is like pretty frustrating and quite compact. The other issue that you're seeing with Fantastic is that because it is a colorless card, it's an artifact, it is incredibly splashable. You see it in a variety of different decks that are approaching playing the card in a bunch of different ways. So obviously, Doomsday has been playing it, just this like kind of like combo deck that it has a bunch of fast mana that's looking to Doomsday, just also has Fantastic included in it as well, because again, like I mentioned, it's just this very effective B plan. And if you're a Doomsday pilot, if you go like turn 1, land, Dark Ritual, Fantastic the odds that in 1 or 2 turns you're going to be able to trigger the car and make it a 4/4 and attack once, and then maybe play the
Doomsday?
next turn after you've done
Is that a
setup
real
to animate all 4
name?
of the cars and win the game. That's a real plan. It's a very effective one. You're seeing it played in 8-cast decks, which are more like tempo strategies almost, are looking to build some kind of like big threat, like Kappa Cannoneer or something of that ilk, and win the game that way, and then back it up with like Force of Will and sometimes.
Yeah.
And that deck can just include Fantastic as well, because it can. Just
No, I got the
on
room
target
came from
easily with a
Fantastic
bunch of zero mana
so I
artifacts
imagine.
that to get to that effect. Additionally, you're seeing these kind of like car.
Do they play Doctor
lists,
Doom
which
cards
are
or just
colorless stompy lists that are playing the Fantastic plus a bunch of lock pieces? And again,
or is it just like
these decks are falling
referencing
back on these
seeing
zero
the
mana artifacts, but you are
contemporary
often able to
Doomsday
actually animate
film
the car
that
and win the game with the car, despite the fact that your deck is really not a combo deck or even a tempo deck. Like you're kind of like an aggressive strategy that can also splash this Fantastic effect. And so overall, I think that's the big thing.
Oh,
the big
okay,
area
okay.
where you are feeling
Got
the most
it, got
significant
it.
pain from people is the fact that this card fits in
Roomstay.
so many different strategies, and it feels as though the format has just become Fantastic the format. To get a better sense of just how present Fantastic has been, I just pulled up a couple of legacy challenges from the last week. So,
Oh my god.
I think
Search your library and graveyard for 5 cards. Exile the rest. Put the chosen cards on top of your. You lose half your life rounded up. Bruh. This seems very strong. Yeah, this sounds very strong. What the hell? Isn't this literally just like stacking your deck? This is like the Saryuja FDK, where you just like stack your entire. Basically, you pretty much determine the next 5 cards. Let's play Thassa's Oracle. Okay. XDD. You cast it with Dark Ritual. I see. I'm assuming that lets you cheat. You like pay life or something instead of paying that. So you pay a turn 1 or something. That's what I'm assuming. But
are slightly better metagame indicators for Legacy, simply because the stakes are a little bit higher, and unlike League's data, where Magic Online only
it's 1 black to make
data,
3
this will give us
black.
a better sense
Ah.
of what people are trying to play, particularly
That
when,
sounds
winning
pretty
is the most
ridiculous.
important. And so there are 2 challenges really that are worth pointing out. This one was on the weekend, on last Sunday, and you can see, I think this is where a big part of the Fantastic angst came from. You can see in the top 4, 8 cast, this is a car deck, Demir car, shockingly a car deck. This black deck, which is mono black car, basically playing a bunch of random like removal spells and discard spells, and then these 0 mana artifacts that I've been talking about over and over again, plus car and the One Ring. And yeah, the top 4 of this deck, all card decks. The bottom 4 of this, or the bottom 8, the other 4 decks in the top 8, are all not card decks, to be fair. And I think what's kind of interesting is that when you look at this challenge, it would be easy to be like, okay, yeah, 6 card decks in the top 16, or maybe more actually. Sorry, this Saga Storm deck is also a Fantastic card deck. So we have 6, 7, 8. 8 card decks. How many card decks? 7 card decks.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
there's 7 card decks in the top 8, which or in the top 16, which is
Is MD? It's
yeah,
staggering
more
right
than
now.
this
So
considerable. Actually, if you look
maintenance
even 2
technically
days later
ended,
at the challenge
but
from
now we
Wednesday,
just have to
and
get in.
obviously who's playing on a Sunday versus who's playing on a Wednesday, maybe that's different. But if you look at this top 8 list, you'll notice
The
you have to
trade-off
really
is temporary mana and
to
not
find,
ramp.
a card deck.
I see.
And then this Doomsday deck, like I mentioned, is also playing the Fantastic Car here. But beyond that, you've got another card deck here. That's a third one. Is this Jewel deck playing the car? It's not. This is like another artifact combo deck.
Yeah, I can't get in.
But isn't. Oops, all spells. This isn't playing the car. So really, there's only 3 of them in the top 16. And I do think that this is an interesting kind of situation where the reaction and the initial kind of angst around car has been really, really significant, despite the fact that like arguably the results don't necessarily present a situation of Fantastic Car being this incredibly, incredibly oppressive tool that nobody can beat and and that needs to be out of the format immediately. In fact, one of the interesting things I think that you can kind of point to with Fantastic Car is the potential presence of other culprits for why this.
What the hell? Excuse me? I did not. XTD.
Isn't. Oops, all spells. This isn't playing the car. So really, there's only 3 of them in the top 16. And I do think that this is an interesting kind of situation where the reaction and the initial kind of angst around car has been really, really significant, despite the fact that like arguably the results don't necessarily present a situation of Fantastic Car being this incredibly.
Need to do dailies? Yeah.
Nobody can beat.
I did mine already.
And that needs to be out of the format immediately. In fact, one of the interesting things I think that you can kind of point to with Fantastic Car is the potential presence of other culprits for why this strategy feels so oppressive. Fantastic Car is really only enabled by the fact that there are all of these 0 mana artifacts in the format. And like I kind of alluded to, literally all of the card decks are all falling back on some number of these 0 mana artifacts, obviously in different amounts depending on what type of card deck they are, but they're all looking to leverage the fact that there really are just like an astonishing number of playable 0 mana artifacts to be able to hit this 4 non-creature spell number quickly. And so overall, I think my take on the Fantastic Car being oppressive is a little bit lower than maybe what other people would have it as. I don't think that it is necessarily something that needs to leave the format immediately. I know there's been people calling for bans, but it is obviously frustrating. And I think that it is interesting that when we look at why it's frustrating, a lot of the reasons why people are annoyed with the card are really comparable to reasons why people get annoyed with new powerful Yu-Gi-Oh cards. When I kind of describe the main pain points of Fantastic Car, the splash ability, the fact that it is a 1-card combo that kind of does it all on its own. It's both a combo card and it's also your second plan. The fact that it's arguably too easy to enable, both because of the fact that all these 0 mana artifacts turn it on for free, and also just because the condition of play 4 non-creature spells is really not that hard to hit in a legacy context. These are all sort of similar knocks that you can make on a card like Habakiri in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think that this is point number 1 at which Fantastic Car feels very, very much so like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card. Habakiri, for the Magic context players, is a card that was released a couple of years ago at this point that basically reads like a custom card. When you activate Habakiri, you get to go get a monster, put it in play, tribute something, and the long and the short of it, without explaining the whole Mitsurugi line, I actually have a video on my channel from very early days where I do that. If you are interested, I'll maybe put a card here. Or here. Yeah, so the whole Habakiri line from
Blizzard,
one card
yeah.
basically gets you an entire end board on its own from 1 card. And the
It's
frustration
pretty,
around that card
like,
was largely related to the fact that it was
Habakiri is pretty unique because it's like, how do I describe it? Like, you often don't get that much for not using your normal summon. A lot of like starters require your normal summon nowadays, like, or like down the line, like Circular is pretty close to Habakiri, but you do have to use your normal summon often. Though technically it is 3 bodies with the equation. I guess Circular is you could consider, but Habakiri was just like you just do everything without having to commit. I don't know if it's like 2 rank 8s. It's like 4 bodies for sure, but I don't know if you get a rank 8 and a rank 4 at the same time. So I don't know why I said 2 rank 8s. I meant to say, I believe you get 1 rank 8 and 1 rank 4, but I don't know if you actually get the Mitsurugi engine online on top of that.
was so splashable. You could put Mitsurugi in any deck, basically. And many of them
That
were
too,
able to
yeah, it's
search for
splashable.
Habakiri in one way or
That's
another,
actually what
but
makes
they worked. And we're
Habakiri
just
more
playing it
unique.
because when you naturally drew one of the pieces that allowed you to go search it out, you would just get this massive reward for fairly low opportunity cost. And I think you are seeing a similar kind of thing happen with the Fantastic Car. It is not a coincidence that Doomsday and 8-cast and these Demure card decks are all able to slot Car in. Really, of those decks that I just mentioned, only one of them is really specifically built around enabling Fantasticar, and it's the Demure Fantasticar deck that really is like a true combo deck built around specifically enabling that strategy. It's playing cantrips and discard, and then rituals to put the car in play and trigger it as fast as possible. It also, incidentally, has a couple of like tempo elements and a B plan that almost makes it look like the existing blue-black tempo deck. Obviously, very different. It's not really that, but that's really the only deck of those ones that I've talked about so far that wouldn't just be a kind of functional deck if you removed Fantasticar from it. Realistically, both 8cast and Doomsday could take the 4 or 3 cars out of their decks and make almost no other changes and still have a highly functional deck. And I think that that is the big kind of point at which I thought this feels very Yu-Gi-Oh card-esque. It's incredibly splashable, goes in a bunch of different decks, is its own kind of engine that immediately raises the ceiling on what your deck is able to do right away, almost by itself. And so I think that that's kind of a very interesting dichotomy that's existing.
Like it's
not
like
the only way
its own engine, and it's like bridgeable into other stuff.
A real issue with modern Yu-Gi-Oh card printing strategies is that a lot of the times they feel like they soft rotate or hard rotate the format. And I've talked about this a bunch on the channel before. There are a ton of examples you can find, particularly of non-engine cards doing this. Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, Mulcharmy Fulos are good, like obvious examples. But there are a ton of examples too, like Habakiri that got printed, or their most recent Justice Hunters format where those 3 archetypes got printed, and that functionally rotated the format, and it became relatively untenable to play most things other than these engines because they were so powerful. And while in Legacy, you're not necessarily seeing the same kind of rotation to the point where nothing else is playable besides these card decks, you are definitely seeing a rotation in terms of the way that the combo decks in particular now look innately includes Fantasticar as this separate plan. Or maybe not even combo decks is the right word, but any of these decks that are playing a lot of 0 mana artifacts or fast mana, they all of a sudden now just have some other outlet that they never had before. And these kind of soft rotations have happened in Legacy before. Modern Horizons 3 is definitely the biggest example of this, where cards like Cameo and Orcish Bowmasters came into the format and just like obviously fundamentally changed the way in which the format was played. And while I think those cards were not necessarily received quite so negatively at the time, you are now seeing, I think, a reasonable number of players calling for bans of cards like the One Ring, Bowmasters, Cameo. Obviously, Psychic Frog did get banned. Sorry, worth noting, MH3 and the Lord of the Rings, two different sets. They're not all from the same set. Another set too that kind of soft rotated the format was when the Initiative was initially introduced into Legacy. In particular, White Plume Adventurer was a card that just fundamentally changed the way that all of the aggressive white decks were structured. They all became structured right and leveraging the Initiative, and obviously White Plume Adventurer ultimately did get banned as well. And I think that there's an interesting discussion to be had here about the way in which the community expects their format to be managed. Because in Yu-Gi-Oh, when these powerful format rotating effects come into play, there is kind of just this acceptance that that's what we're going to play now. And in Legacy, it does sometimes feel as though players want to be able to play the same archetypes structured in the same way forever. And that seems unrealistic in a way. Many times in Legacy's history, new cards have been printed into the format that have ultimately gotten banned relatively quickly because they've started to kind of upset the natural state of things to a point that got too far, essentially. And I think most of those times, it has been provably unhealthy, that there have been real substantial issues with the way that the format has been exists, and so it did kind of necessitate the ban of those cards. But I'm not convinced that it's always the case. One of the examples I can think of a card that got banned and I was kind of unsure how I felt about it was Dreadhorde Arcanist. This is a 1 in a red 1/3 that when it attacks got to cast a spell for that costs equal to or less than its power from the graveyard. And the thing about this card was that it was obviously incredibly powerful with recurring cantrips, which is one of the main format identities of Legacy. And I didn't mind the card as much because I felt like it gave you a real reason to play red if you were in these blue decks, and obviously there were reasons to play red anyway, but it did not feel like especially soupy to me necessarily, and at the end of the day, it was just a 1/3 creature that could be removed off the board. Ultimately, that card did end up getting the axe for being too efficient of a grinding engine, but it is sort of a situation in my mind where people just also decided that they didn't like playing those kinds of games anymore, and that the uproar around that was ultimately eventually a problem. I don't remember exactly what the play rate data was like, and maybe I am just looking back at this with rose-colored glasses because I liked the play patterns of Dreadhorde Arcanist in a lot of ways, and maybe it was a situation where like 50% of all decks and challenges were Arcanist decks, and obviously, if I'm wrong about that, let me know in the comments, and I, I'll definitely apologize. But my recollection of that card is not nearly as negative as I think it might be for some other people. And I think a lot of what this comes down to is communication and the way that the format is being managed. In Yu-Gi-Oh, there's no communication. They just tell you when the new cards are legal and they tell you when the ban lists come out. And that's fine. Players have clearly accepted that that's the framework in which they are operating for playing their game. But in Magic, there is this weird kind of expectation, I guess, that Wizards is going to communicate about the way the format is being managed and the view that they have on how the format will work. And there is sometimes, I think, a real disconnect between the way that those articles and kind of communications are written and the way that the actual community feels about the format. Gavin from Distraction Makers made a video about Fantasticar as well a couple of days ago at this point, and I'll put it on screen. We'll kind of be looking at it. He made a bunch of other really good points about kind of like the design approach of Fantasticar, the design approach that Magic has taken as a
The
whole.
Fantasticar
I'd
situation is
I made a
wild.
comment on this video because I thought it was a very interesting video.
Bad
One of the
news
things
gamers. And Fantasticar is ability 60 card eternal format. That's kind of wild. Like the one card is just like upending a whole metagame. Oh my god, he oh, we have LC in the comments. Wizards have this sort of insistence that Legacy is slow moving format. They believe the metagames need a time to adjust. Problem is that they have fallen incredibly far behind on taking action against design mistakes that are basically not been a metagame state that's been attackable for years at this point. This notion that the format is slow moving is basically antithetical to the release cycle that is now beholden to. Legacy Vintage get way more cards that are often intentionally printed at outlier power level for sake of Commander, put into format yearly, so it just can't be slow moving anymore. Bruh.
I pointed out is that the Legacy format has for a long time been treated with this kind of approach of eternal formats are slow moving. Our expectation is that Legacy will be slow moving and that the metagame can adapt to powerful cards because there are powerful engines and answers in the format. And the problem is they continue to maintain this as a format philosophy while at the same time pumping cards into the format at an incredibly high rate, and also they're putting cards into the Legacy format and the Vintage format as well that are not really tested for 1v1 Magic, which is another problem, right? Fantasticar is a Commander card, and it comes from a Commander deck, and I can guarantee you that because that's the environment in which it was designed in, it was not tested with 1v1 Magic in mind to nearly the level that you would want it to be for something like the Legacy format. And that's not necessarily a problem. There are issues with resources. You can only test so much stuff. Wizards has insisted on this like really aggressive release schedule. And if you're going to go with that really aggressive release schedule, you are inherently going to have to give up some amount of quality assurance, potentially, I guess. I don't know. In a perfect world, you wouldn't, but clearly they are. And as a result, I think that you are seeing cards designed for Commander ending up in Legacy and causing massive problems. The Initiative is another great example of this. Not a mechanic that I think was tested for 1v1 formats, and it has had a bunch of really negative implications in Legacy, and Pauper as well had some issues with the Initiative, let's just say. And I think that you can look at the way in which communication is being done in other games and for other formats as kind of a nod to how ideally this would happen. I think recently the Riftbound, one of the head designers at Riftbound, tweeted out basically announcing that they were going to ban a card in an upcoming ban announcement. Like the ban announcement's not yet out yet, but he
really
early on in these.
Oh, this is pretty unprecedented. Want to give a heads up on coming. I mean, I guess it's a newer TCG or whatever, so they can take advantage of these. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not really gonna be like, oh, Konami usually doesn't tell us shit anyway, so. That's pretty novel. I'm not used to that.
To communicate that they were going to make a ban change, and the change makes a lot of sense. Essentially, Vendetta is the first set that's going to put a purple and yellow leader in the same legend, meaning that you can actually play purple and yellow cards at the same time. And actually, as early as set 2, there was a 3-card infinite in Riftbound that you just literally couldn't play because purple and yellow were not two colors you could play together. And they communicated very effectively. And the developer was essentially like, hey, we're going to ban this card out of the combo, and we don't mind that infinite combos might exist in the game. They're not always going to be banned, but in this case, this one was not tested to the level that we're comfortable with, so we're just banning it before it even comes out. And I think that kind of communication and that kind of like admitting when you miss is, I think, what people are really like hoping for, especially from the Legacy format. There just has to be some amount of willingness to say, yes, we acknowledge that this card is going to be really powerful, and even though I don't think that they necessarily needed to do something like pre-ban the card, there needed to at least be some amount of communication of, hey, this might be too good, it wasn't tested with Legacy in mind. But you'll just never get that kind of communication. And instead, we're probably going to live in a world where the Fantasticar is legal for months, I would guess, before any kind of balance change is made to
I remember last time I read a ban list, they did mention.
Obviously, I don't have access to.
Was it the monkey that got banned?
That Riftbound typically use, or not Riftbound, sorry.
Where they said like they made it specifically. Oh no, it was the bird.
They clearly had enough data to action the colorless Tron deck that popped up.
Where they said like,
Undercity Informer. Side note.
Oh, we printed this for Commander, but didn't.
And I said that I thought that banning Undercity Informer while this.
Yeah, new card. Yeah.
And I said that I thought that was a really bad idea, and that Tron would take over because you were removing its natural predator from the format, while it was also clearly.
But I guess it's like a retroactive explanation after the ban list.
It got to a metagame state where it needed to be actioned. I would guessed. It was me. I would have guessed that it needed to happen. But they did, in that same communication where they made ban changes to the colorless Tron deck, say that Fantastic Art was something that was on their radar and that they were going to be looking at it, which is fine. I don't think that that's like no communication. But when these changes are ultimately made, a lot of the dialogue around it tends to feel very corporate and tends to not really engage.
Oh, you mean we finally got the final? Oh, this is the utility selection. Okay, let me see. Huh. This is the Dominus girl. Wait, is this Purge? I think this is the Purge girl. Very interesting that they would finally become like actual monsters. Okay, I guess we'll find out. It's a tuner. Interesting. Could this be a hand trap? I know this means girl. Rose Pamela. Oh, Pamela. Song search any Dominus card. Dominus. Oh, it is. Yeah, this is a Dominus. Dominus Thea? Yeah, Dominus Thea. Pamela. Okay. Guess we'll find out.
Like, and here's why we're making this change. It's always just related to play rate data, win rate data, and not necessarily related to the state of the format as a whole.
But doesn't songs prevent you from?
The thing that frustrates me the most, because if
oh, is that the girl on songs, not Purge?
I think that it will be done. It will happen.
Oh wait, Purge is in song.
Like play rate,
okay.
and win rate.
Give me a second.
And for
Let me
me,
confirm for myself.
I kind of think that this might
it's
just
both.
be
Okay.
a natural, reasonable rotation for the combo decks in Legacy. Like, I don't know that I necessarily view it as this really awful thing that now all of a sudden we have all these card decks. I think the worst.
What was the bird that got banned from that one MTG ban I looked at?
Deck that you need 4 of in most of these combo decks. Like, I think a playset is like $150
Forgot.
US. That's not great. And you would hope that if they do ultimately decide that it is going to stay in the format, that they find some kind of way to reprint it so that it's more accessible for players. But in terms of its actual efficacy in the format, it is obviously very strong. It's the new thing. But at the same time, I've at least felt recently like a lot of the combo decks in the Legacy format have felt really underwhelming. I think things like Sneak and Show and Reanimator have kind of like dominated the metagame, and decks like Storm have really not felt super playable in a lot of ways. And to me, having a card like the Fantastic Card being the thing that a lot of your combo decks are operating towards just doesn't feel like it's necessarily that bad. It is a 3-mana artifact at the end of the day, so it requires a reasonable amount of setup cost. You can destroy it, like you can stifle the trigger. There's a bunch of ways to interact with what the Fantastic Card is doing. It also just only attacks for 16. Like it does not on its own win the game right away, and obviously if it explodes into 4 cards, it's pretty challenging to remove, but you're even seeing people play like decks with more terminuses. Blue-white is making more of a resurgence into the metagame because you have access to ways to remove all of the cards once they're put in play. And I guess just for me, I'm not 100% sold on the Fantastic Card being really negative. It clearly is a Yu-Gi-Oh card, and I think a lot of the frustration is because it's doing some of the things that new Yu-Gi-Oh cards do that frustrate some of the people in that community as well. It will functionally rotate out certain decks or certain constructions of certain decks, and it does have a decided issue of having accessibility problems. And that is also something I didn't really mention it, but that's something that you see with new Yu-Gi-Oh cards sometimes, is that they get jammed at really high rarities, despite being cards that like almost every deck is going to need to play 3 of, meaning that the price ends up at a really like kind of obscene level. And that is less deliberate here, I think, that it is with Yu-Gi-Oh, but that's also another way in which this card is Yu-Gi-Oh-esque. So yeah, I mean, that's mostly what I have for today. I don't want to do too much more. I feel like this has already started to get a little bit rambly, but I just wanted to talk a bit about the Fantastic Car, and I initially wrote this video to talk about like how broken it is and how incredibly powerful it is. And then I played a couple of leagues with it. I watched some content with it. I went and looked at deck lists. I went and looked at results, and I guess I'm just not sold on this idea that the Fantastic Car is this incredibly oppressive piece that needs to go in Legacy. In Vintage, I think it is a different discussion. The 0-mana artifacts that I mentioned that are super present in Legacy are even more present in Vintage, obviously, because of the Moxen and things of that ilk. And yeah, probably in that format, I would be surprised if the Fantastic Car stays legal at 4 for a long time. But fortunately, Vintage has a slightly less aggressive tool to limit these kinds of things, and they might well just limit Fantastic Car to 1, and then I think you might just see that it's fine in that format, would be my guess at 1. Pretty unlikely to me that it goes all the way to 0. But yeah, that's what I got. That's what I got on Fantastic Art today. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, I hope you will subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. And I want to say a big thank you to my Patreon subscribers and people who have joined as members here on the YouTube channel. If I'm talking about them, it means that they are on the screen now.
All right. So I guess it could yeah, the card does feel like Habakiri. At least I think he did make a decent case. But I don't know too much about. Alrighty. How is maintenance looking? Good morning, Awakening. Let's see. All right, we'll put on the Ryan Yu video.
What is up, YouTube? It's Aaron back here with the channel, and today we've got on the bubble number, I literally just wrote it down and forgot, 28.
28.
We've got Rahan. We've got the NAWCQ champion, Ryan Yu. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good.
Good.
All right, I'll be
How
back.
are you doing? You are now a doctor. You are now married and back from your honeymoon. It's been a little bit. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm actually stressed. I'm actually really stressed because I have a conundrum that I hope chat can help me with. I have 2 shifters.
Oh my god.
I don't know which one to use. So if anybody wants to help me, I have like the OG 10 rarity, which is really nice and shiny, but I also have this one which just says buy, and I think it's really nice.
I say buy is the correct answer, but like, why is the question?
I think it's also buy. It's way funnier.
Yeah, it's way hilarious. Yeah, the crossout saying no is also just great. Like some of the cheeky stuff they're doing is fantastic. Alrighty, so today I think we're just going to catch up with WCQ stuff. The next episode, which we're going to come out either later this week or early next week, we'll have Luca Kovac and Logan Johnson, who both qualified for worlds in their own right. But this week we're just going to do a little bit of a breakdown on WCQ, catch up with Ryan, and chat about him and his world prep. So let us hop right into it. So Ryan, I hear you won world or won WCQ. How does that make you feel?
I feel very happy. Like, it honestly still doesn't feel like it actually happened.
Well, it did, and you then officially broke the record for the best. I think officially broke the record for the best tournament record ever at 18-0. The previous record was 17-0 from I think Marcelo Barbary in was it 2017
Zoo
Nationals? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's been duplicated, but yeah, this is now the most like wins in a single tournament, which is fantastic. So congratulations to that, my friend. You played Sky Striker, old reliable, which I'm not sure if anyone's surprised
Yeah.
by like this being the deck that you were able to accomplish this with. So tell us what led you to that decision.
I really despise Cool Tune. Like, I understand some people might find it enjoyable, but it's just not something that I enjoy playing. So it was a pretty obvious choice for me because I like my Sky Striker deck, and it's so rare for it to actually be playable. So it would be a waste of an opportunity right now when it's like at least decent not to use it.
Fair enough. And yeah, if anyone has been living under a rock and didn't actually see it, this is the rest of the top 8, by the way. So yeah, there were 7 KTs and 1 Sky Striker. I guess we can use this to look at EU as well. I might have it pulled up, but I believe EU was what 3 KT, 2 Elf Notes, like a Mitsu.
It was
and
actually
something.
one elf note. It was one elf note.
Was there any light and darkness in top 8?
There was no Light and Darkness in any
No,
top 8. I
one
think
invoked.
Oceanics had 1. I guess we can just do all this right now since we're all here. So EU
it was-
was KT times 3, Branded times 2, Mitsu invoked, Elf Note. There were 4 Rolad decks in top 16, so all of them just bricked it out. And then in Oceania, 2 Rolad, and then a smattering of other stuff, 3 KT, and then a bunch of one-offs.
I think for the top 16, the Rolad deck, I think Josh mentioned in his post-tournament recap, I think he had a double loss. I think he mentioned. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he mentioned he had a double loss earlier in the tournament, and I think that causes tiebreakers to like lose out on top 16. But I think it was cool that I think him and Tom were also like really close with the Light and Darkness deck.
Yes, I mean I like the deck. I ended up swapping to it right before Nationals. I think it was a good call for nothing else than like people weren't going to know how to beat your deck. Like I think it was very underprepared for. Because also the hand traps that are good versus it are not very good against KT, specifically like Ogre. And then FND was like kind of played, but also not like we saw a lot of the KT list swapping over to Purge and all of that. Like all just like the max hand trap build. So it was pretty unlikely for the deck to be prepared for in a meaningful way. So that was like the selling
It all
point
seemed
for
fun to play.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing it a lot on Blowing Book since then. Like, it's just a deck. Like, if I know, like, figured out like this build of the deck prior, I would have spent way more time playing it. And like, this is a deck that I enjoy playing. So that is probably what I'll be playing for the foreseeable future, just for the sole reason that I enjoy playing it. Obviously, on top of the fact that it's good. So that's nice. But yeah, I wasn't able to convert in a meaningful way. It did qualify for Worlds. Josh Kelly played it and went, I think, 4-1 or however they did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can kind of briefly go over that.
Okay, I'm back.
Was the qualifier?
Oh, way to start off a podcast.
Is,
True.
same as an ace, but they do 4 on the Swiss. The 4-0 gets automatic qualification, and then the 4 X1s all play win-in-ins for Worlds. So it gives you a little bit of a mulligan if you have 1 loss in Swiss. And the 2 qualifiers were Josh Kelly and I don't remember the other guy's name. I can find it, but it was
it was Yannick Ackerman, who actually went 2-2
yeah.
and then got the 5th slot, which is crazy.
Well, I didn't realize that's insane.
Yeah.
Well, I think there was a double. There had to have been a double loss. So instead of 4 X1s, there was an X2.
Belgium, Genesis.
And I think I like that U format a bit more, just because I think
Yeah.
it's a bit of a crime to like work the entire season and then the playoff comes about and you just have like one unfortunate round that you break or something, and then that just like ruins your entire like World Cup dream or not World
Yeah.
Cup. Sorry, absolutely.
It's basically double elimination the way Europe does it. It's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Which I think is definitely preferred because like
Yeah.
just like like Rahan mentioned, the structure of like grinding all year and then being like one match of Yu being through it all, like if it's for like if you're in the like the WCQ portion of the event, I think
Yeah, I
that's
know
if
EU
you're
did it
just
differently,
playing
but I
a
didn't know
tournament, but
it was
just the
double
goal of the qualification
elimination.
process is like you spent a lot of time, effort, obviously dollars, like qualifying through traveling, just to reduce it down to one match of Yu-Gi-Oh seems kind of disrespectful to that whole process. I'm not sure if that's a better way to phrase it, but like if your goal is like yes, the best players go to Worlds, and like obviously the 16 players are all qualified, but it just seems kind of redundant, or not redundant, but like reductive to put it down to that kind of format when we're looking at Europe, from my perspective, doing a better system currently. So yeah, shout out to them. Invoked was a deck that I haven't seen played at all. Ryan, Invoked isn't up to date on Master Duel, is it? Have you seen? Are you aware?
No, it's not fully out on Master Duel, so I have no clue what the cards do.
All right, that makes two of us. Rahan?
So Invoked as a deck I was actually really looking at for WCQ. I was working on it with Ivan. And we looked at the cards a lot because we obviously like when the cards were first announced, we look at Invoked Oceanus and we look at Invoked Hyper, Invoked Aeon, and the cards are crazy. Like those two cards are like the reason to play the deck. And we looked at the deck a lot, but we ran into like a fair few issues with the deck. But we were looking at it for like hybrid builds, and I think that was like a bit of an oversight. Was not sort of like, giving like the invoke cards kind of like the respect they deserve and like playing it pure. Granted, Ivan still doesn't like the invoke pure deck. He's still very much high on like the Magistus builds or like the hybrid builds. But it definitely was a deck we were really like highly looking at for WCQ. But obviously, neither one of us went, so we just ended up like discarding it. But it is a deck that I'm really high on now. Previously, I was on like Elf Note. I think Elf Note's fantastic still, but I think the invoke deck is just really, really, really well positioned right now. Like it destroys branded. It's really good into the roulette deck, and it's pretty. It has a really I think pretty high like matchup into Cool Tune, just because like if you draw like any of like the way to fuse, then the hand traps on like the Alistair engine kind of don't do as much, and as long as you're able to get into Oceanus, the matchup is pretty one-sided. So I thought that after playing the deck a bit, I think the Invoke deck is really cool, and it's probably what I'm going to be on for the foreseeable future.
What a surprise! Rahan back to his roots. Ryan's back to his roots.
Yeah,
It makes sense. Where it's all going back to the OG decks.
Like I'm not even bandwagoning. Like I always used to play Invoked, which is I finally dug out my old Invoke cards. I was really happy.
I'm not
because
too
that's
sold
top
on the invoke cards, but
So yeah,
I'll
briefly,
probably read
decks that are
them when they finally
but
get to Master Duel.
Wilson, or sorry, KT is 16, so a quarter of top 64. Obviously, we're missing 10 decks. But the roulette deck was 13 of 64 or 54, so it has a pretty impressive showing for opening weekend. Which I think
I remember people saying Lancia is good against that if it comes down to it.
Anything crazy impressive. I will say it does have the best grind game I think I've ever seen. Just due to at least the current meta with like there not being a lot of graveyard interaction. And it's just like really difficult to prevent the roulette deck from doing what it wants to do. On top of like Black Chaos being a soft once return and all of like the positive effects that it has. So I think this deck is going to obviously do well over the course of time as we get more support. Like some of the overframes are better for the deck where you can bridge into Dark Edition stuff. So I think Dex was a good call for the weekend. Obviously, wasn't able to convert, but I think it had strong selling points, and we'll see how it kind of transfers moving forward. I didn't look at Oceana too much. I see some familiar names, Bowden and Daniel Peck in the top 16 with KT. But shout out to Jerry Zhang who won with.
Oh yeah, the deck that won. Oceanics.
He was able to
the good big ass pile.
I didn't actually consider the Yummy. I think he may have played Fiendsmith as well. I don't remember. I guess I can look. But...
He did for sure, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Fiendsmith gets a Yummy roulette. So he just played like the Triff pile translated to current format, which respect. Yeah, I mean, good deck. Or a lot of good cards in the deck. The biggest issue I had originally was just like how consistently could you play through like one or two interactions? Because initially when I built the deck, it was Mitsu, Rolad, how do I remember the third? Azmina maybe. I think it was just those three, and you actually didn't have the number of stars that you thought you would in 60. Like you have to like add Monjus in to get over like 25, which is not a high number in 60 if people aren't familiar. Like the old pile decks in this format were like in the 29 to 30 range, and that number definitely matters more as you're playing 60. Like you're exponentially less likely to see duplicates or like two stars whenever you increase your deck count that much. So congrats to him for finding a way to make it work. This is cool deck. Hopefully it doesn't get too popular because that's when formats get really degenerate, when it just like flood hand traps and whatever. So yeah, I guess he picked the right time to pull it out, and we'll see how this deck kind of translates moving forward. So yeah, back to North America and the star of the show, Ryan. So 18-0, kind of, I guess walk us through what led you up to all this, because if I remember correctly, I heard from a little bird that you were not even going to enter this WCQ. You were just going to hang out, enjoy the weekend, and then what changed your mind?
I've gotten discouraged several times from trying to win a TCG event because that's been kind of the last goal of mine that I've had in the game for a while now.
I'm still staggered. Holy shit.
Worlds or anything. But that was mainly that was the one thing I really wanted. But then every time I would go to an event, or if I get close or if I don't come close at all, and it feels like it's out of your control, it feels pretty disheartening. So I didn't really feel like playing. I was planning to just go hang out with friends. But at the same time, I also still had the kind of will to keep playing because I still want to try to win. So it's kind of those two sides clashing, and then I want to play side one out by just a little bit.
Yeah, so that kind of answered the question I was going to ask you. So I guess not to the full extent. So like, what makes like the TCG first place so important to you when you are a multi-time world champion? You have won 5 DC Cups now if you include the WCQ. Or is it 6 now? 4? 4 plus WCQ or?
4, yeah. or 4 in total, like 3 DC and one WCQ.
And then did you get
It's okay.
second
Who's
as well?
counting at this point?
Yeah, right. Like, of course, it's just so yeah. Like you have won. I know, like you said before the show started, you've been on 7% of the on the bubbles. You've won a higher percentage of DC cups that have existed than been on the bubbles. That's just an absurd stat line. So what makes a TCG tournament just like the holy grail at this point, or like the completion of the Infinity Stones? I guess is the other way to put it.
It wasn't really my goal when I first started playing. I'm sure everyone has a different goal or maybe set of goals that they initially have, just whatever they feel like. But my goal when I started playing, like when I was like really young, was always to go to Worlds, and that's still something that's important to me, and still something I like grind really hard for every year to go back to Worlds. But I wouldn't say it's more so it means more to me than going to Worlds in a strict sense. It's more just it's kind of the one thing I hadn't gotten yet. Like I've been able to qualify for Worlds. I've been fortunate enough to win Worlds, but I've never been able to win an event in the TCG. So it just felt like the last thing that I still wanted to show myself that I could do.
Let's
Even though,
go.
I mean, obviously you show yourself that you're capable, but like so from the outside looking in, as someone who doesn't have DC Cup wins and Worlds wins, like I feel like you understand internally that you're capable of doing it. It's just like getting the opportunity to perform and just like execute, and obviously get a little bit lucky at the same time that you're able to make that happen.
Yeah, I would say maybe mentally, ideally, knowing that you're good enough to do it should be enough, or at least some solace. But still, like showing yourself that you can do it by actually doing it, as opposed to telling yourself that you're good enough, it feels a little bit different still.
Of course, I mean, yeah, I
And
mean,
as
yeah, you're good.
and as someone who has come very close to winning a TCG event, I know that it's also just very different in terms of like having the actual win versus like knowing that you can actually get there.
Yeah.
That's probably I think also like a big factor.
With all due respect, Rahan, you don't have 4 DC Cup wins. I think that
Now I've definitely felt that. Like I mean, this is my record in the finals is still abysmal. I'm still 1-3.
I was
But
gonna say
at least we have one now.
I remember second at the Sword Soul WCQ where you played Striker. Second at Exo Sister event, I think.
No, I got second after Swiss with Exo Sister,
Okay.
but I got second with Charlie and Alec with Labyrinth at the team YCS.
Yeah, okay, you got
and then
second.
I got second with Striker 2 years ago.
Okay. So yeah, I guess monkey off your back in that regard because you obviously are capable in terms of your playing ability. I think anyone's ever.
Yeah.
been
It
impressed with
feels like completely full circle because my first top was getting second at Nats with Striker, and now I finally won something at Nats with Striker again. So
Was that your first
like it
TCG
feels
top?
like that was my
Yeah,
first top. So it feels like everything's done now.
That's
that.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's insane because at that point, like I feel like almost everyone already knew who you were just from like playing online during COVID and like the name, obviously like from Dragon Ball as well, but like you were already a household name at that point in terms of your abilities and successes. So I didn't even realize that was your first TCG.
Yeah, the Zodiac Striker Demon
If I remember correctly, it was pretty absurd.
from the LCSs. That was the online tournaments from during that time.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, and I remember that national so vividly because you were in top 4 against Elijah, I think, and the feature match was done like forever ago. Like, and the else match was still going. I think it was untimed, and they were just like panning the camera over.
I'm so sorry, same, yeah.
An effectively unwinnable game too. Like there was no chance that you should have won. I think it was also the rivalry or some absurd combination of just like Marinta's cards.
It was still
Rizal, Yummy, Mitsuru unrated.
I was down 0-1 because that matchup, like Striker Marinta's is notoriously bad for Striker. It's actually like bordering unwinnable.
I was watching Josh
and then game 2,
during one of his Master Duel climbs, and he was running into
a bunch of just bad Sky Striker cards. So I was setting like roses, and then I was like using Hornet Drones just to chump block to not die.
what's called Elf Note Yummy, which is pretty funny.
With Marble Rock, and then I had there could be only one in Area 0, and I was just setting like a new monster every turn. And eventually I won. I top decked Cosmic, and then the Area 0 hit engage in the same turn. Like it was very unreasonable.
Yeah.
Was he on Paleo? Yeah.
I mean, just for me, like obviously I don't recall. I'm really bad recalling specific Yu-Gi-Oh matches, but that one, I think it may have been the first event that we met each other as well. So I was just like really invested in you and your success after having talked to you over COVID. I think that was the first event you went to.
I mean, that was like one of the that was the second event in person after COVID.
It was the third because it was Charlotte, Hartford, then Nats.
Yeah, I don't think I went to Charlotte. I went to
Charlotte. Yeah, Charlotte. Right.
Yeah,
Charlotte,
that was the first one I went to after COVID. I didn't go to Charlotte or Hartford.
Then, yeah, I think we like may have known each other like very in passing.
I haven't seen you like in passing, but after we were like good friends, yeah, that was the first one probably.
Yeah, that was a crazy match to watch in retrospect. Yeah, and now here we are, just demolishing everyone. I think you lost what 4 games the entire tournament, if I remember your tournament run correctly.
It was definitely more than 4.
6? I don't know.
I think it's 5.
And I mean, it was something good. But...
Yeah, very impressive. Yeah, I mean, we can pull up your deck list. Do you have anything like specific? You did deck profile, but like any like quick thoughts that you have on this, like, because I was gonna say you worked with one of the Dragon Duelists, so I'm familiar with Luis. And your list is like a little bit different from this. So
Straight up facts from my Oshi. Fortunately, the Herald folded instantly, and Wululu Mogged Center. Yes, we took down Herald.
Together with the exact same 70 card deck, so I couldn't have done it without him.
Yeah.
I ran into a Luis on Friday, and
still staggered
with his Striker deck, so I basically gave him a version of my list that I would play for Dragon Duel instead of the main event because you expect the meta to be different.
Yeah.
But yeah, same shit.
Yeah. So I don't think there's anything like outside of the norm. Evenly, I think was a call that some better people were on that. Maybe not better, but just like people that were like in the know and like understood that like Rolev was like not the best matchup for their deck. Like, is that kind of what led you to make that decision?
It's literally just for the Light and Darkness deck, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because
that was also Yuji's idea. So thanks to him for that. I only ended up using it once. Oh, I used it once against Elf Note, and then I ironically used it against Yuji in the Striker Mirror, and then I also used it against Ray in the Striker Mirror. So it was good.
So again, obviously came out, that's hilarious. So you played what, 2 striker mirrors, and then I remember there's like 11 KT or 12 KT in.
It was 11 KT, 2 Striker, 1 Blitz. That's 14. 1 Elf.
1 elf, no.
No, 2 Elf. 1 Ritual. Something weird. I don't know. It's on Twitter.
Yeah, if anyone wants to see like the full breakdown.
New
on
overframe.
rating page.
Let me see if there's a YG org article because I'm not reading a translate. They always piss me off.
Logan on, so won't go too in depth there. Yeah. So
Every time I read a fan translated one, there's something missing, and I get annoyed.
I think is something that is maybe not as known publicly. I think you talk about it a fair bit on Twitter, especially like with the DC success you've had, and like, hey, you don't have to play for 72 hours straight. So I'm very appreciative that someone else is preaching a good word in terms of that.
You got it,
yeah,
nice.
I mean, I've known you since you were a child, effectively, and now you're a young adult graduating college, which people didn't know he did that. So congratulations to you, sir.
Yeah.
So what are some things that have contributed?
No, there's in the OCG. They're releasing the final card. They're revealing the final card for the utility section selection. So it's like the Dominus girl from Purge.
I guess I'll answer. Sorry,
But yeah, I'm waiting for the translation. I'm not gonna.
I pretty much get sick after every event. I get sick really easy, but I think it's sick this time. So that's good. Okay, but to answer the question, I would say, okay, I'll answer it like 3 different ways. So firstly, I would say in general.
Got it, nice. I just checked and I'm a
like,
fucking.
Like separate from the game. I think one thing that helps me a lot is that I've started like I can't remember when, but I just to pay more attention to little maybe things that I might have not given enough attention or appreciation to, like little things that make me happy. So if it's like eating something nice, or just the weather's nice, or if there's something I want to read, I'll stay in bed and read it. Like little things like that that keep me sane. I would say those are very helpful. And then
Please, Konami. I'm kind of master duelist.
Bothering me, like bothering because it's like the best word I can think of, but that's probably not exactly accurate.
That's never happened before. I mean, it's probably a serious issue that they have to fix. It's not like.
Obviously, the better you are, the better you prepare, the better you execute, the less luck you need. But to win, it has to be your weekend, like 100%.
As long as they're fixing it.
And that can be really frustrating at times. So the first thing I would say is if you have good friends, like people who will listen to you when you're frustrated and support you and remind you that like you're capable, that there's other things that are better to be appreciated, like in and outside of the events, stuff like that. That's really helpful. And then with respect to the game, I'm sure something different works for everyone, but for me, a lot of it was not caring what other people think, because obviously some part of me wanted to win an event because I wanted to, or like, because I want to achieve something, and I think it would be cool. But also, initially, a lot of it was that I wanted to prove something to other people, which is not a healthy mindset to have. Like, it's not actually gonna bring you any real joy. Like, it'll only bring you misery, regardless of how you do. So, it's an important thing to drop.
Pamela to Almirage? Pamela? Okay. Well, I'll find out what Pamela does.
You're probably a little bit similar, where you've grown a lot mentally over the course of my time knowing you. So what do you think contributed to that for you as well?
I think a big aspect of that, as someone who doesn't travel or go to as many events, or has nearly even a fraction of that much success, I think a big one was when I started playing the game. I was actually having a lot of success. Like when I started playing the game, it was like during remote format, and I like was able to like join a lot of events. You know, I was on like the Konami broadcast and things like that.
Is it a hand trap? Is it a card that like searches Dominus? Oh, it's here. Okay, we have the Pamela.
I think that's when I met Ryan as well for the first time.
Really?
I was like, I think so.
All right, I'll check it out. Are you? No, I don't care for any. I told you guys, it's SP or bust. There's no future card that'll make me care about Dominus Steer. Oh, like Musketeer. Rose Pamela. Rose Pamela. Okay. During your opponent's turn, you can reveal this card you had and 1 Dominus Purge from your deck of hand and discard 1 card. That's cool. Okay, so it is both. If this card is normal or special summon, you can set 1 Dominator's Dominus Purge trap. It's both. Wow. I mean, that's kind of that wasn't hard to predict. Set 1 Dominators. It can be activated. Wait, what do we do with the Pamela? At least all I see. Okay, I see why it's Almirage because of 0 attack. But I guess I don't see the. I assumed she was gonna spawn another body. Something big will happen. Did rollback ever happen? No, I don't think so. I don't think they've ever rolled back anything. Well, there was that gem exploit where you couldn't there was that gem exploit. But they just retroactively took back the gems. Yeah, we don't. I don't think they did like a literal rollback though.
Knew you better after COVID.
Yeah, probably. That sounds
Yeah. So
No, you didn't
like,
get.
yeah, the only problem
You
with
reveal
COVID, so I
backup.
also had
Oh, that's what you mean.
first
Okay.
event where I actually topped in person. But then after that, like I didn't have any tops. I think there's like a big issue of like where, like what Ryan said, like you two, like to win an event, obviously it has to be your day, and then everything has to go perfectly. But there's also a kind of a different discrepancy of what a lot of people think they're at versus where they're really at. And bridging the gap of where you see yourself versus where you actually are, I think is something that requires a bit of like introspection and reflection to properly like bridge that gap. Because you can obviously have goals. I think having goals is completely fine and
Are
reasonable.
you getting down
But then
spurs?
also
Yeah.
recognizing the
We
work and like
finally
the
got
issues that like
the
you need to
girl
address to bridge
on
that
the
gap to
art.
your goals, I think is one thing. So I think reframing what the
It's a
expectations are
tuner,
versus, I
yes.
think,
It is a
initially
tuner.
reflection
You can
versus
you can
someone
summon it
who's
off
doing
Q. But for what it's worth, Q is the most hand trap
usually pick up
card
every
in the
enjoy
cool
it,
tune
but then
deck.
go to events expecting success
But
and
yes, you
getting hurt.
can do that. That's
Because
actually so
I
funny.
think it's reasonable to want success, but I think expecting success is where there's a lot of like I guess negativity associated with your mental health, and I think
That
that's
is
when you
super
become
funny.
like out of love with the game.
Yeah, I think that's all good. Like, I from like the adult like mental side of me, like I agree with a lot of what you said, but also to like younger people that like aren't at that level yet where they're able to like have that level of reflection and introspection. I think like you kind of do have to just like either fake it till you make it or like kind of just like balls to the wall, like I'm good enough to do this, because especially like if you're an up and comer and you don't have like that solid group of people around you like to reaffirm you, and like obviously like I'm just like you could do coaching or like you could do whatever, like if you don't have like access to like good people that are able to be like, yeah, like you're on the right path, like you kind of do just have to like full send it like under your own.
I'm still not in, me
Like,
neither.
I'm good enough to make this happen, and that belief should not be built off of like just lines, whatever. Like you should actually put in the work. You should study and review and take the steps you need to get good. But then,
I know he
like,
mentions that like having that like confidence when you're on your own, but I feel like it's still just more important to find people, like-minded people, to just like encourage you, to achieve your goals. Because like just having to do everything on your own, it's just, I don't know, it's not sustainable in my opinion. So yeah, while it's more like you just have no choice but to like you know have a bravado or whatever. I don't think that's sustainable. I think that's just like you just have no choice. I think I wouldn't have played this game as long as I have if I didn't have like I wouldn't call it a support group, but just like people I could just like who would earnestly like listen to what I say, or it's not even like I'm trying to become super competitive either. But yeah, I don't agree with that attitude in general. And like it's just like it only seems like it comes up as last resort.
I don't know, like I agree. Like for me, like it is very important to temper expectations. Like I cracked out a nationals due to just like fatigue, and like like I knew going in that was a pretty real possibility. Like I slept a very little amount of time, and there wasn't much I could do about that, and it sucks. But I was able to like as an adult actually be like, hey, like if you swap text last minute and sleep for 4 hours the night before, like you're not gonna do well. Like, but like younger me would have just like not been able to really cope with that, because I've been like, hey, like no matter what, like my goal is to succeed, and like there aren't really excuses. So I think there's definitely a balance of like, hey, like do the things you need to do to succeed, and then from there just like full send it. I don't know, like you kind of like have to believe in yourself. That doesn't mean be disrespectful. That doesn't mean like talk down on anybody. Like I think Triv is a very good example of just being, hey, like I'm good, and like deal with it. And he obviously has results to back it up. That persona only works because he has success. Like you can like the level of cocky you are allowed to be is directly correlated to how like much results you have in like by the public's eyes. But like you should still like have like some just like strut your stuff, like hey, like I'm that good, like I'm gonna prove it to you. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of both of like, hey, be reasonable with your expectations, but also like, hey, I'm good enough to make this happen, and I'm going to prove it.
I don't know if Triff is a good example. Triff is a sort of a chicken before the egg type of situation where it's like, okay, well,
He was like that.
I say like the one
Which I
thing
think he's
yeah.
actually better, because if you're like that before you have success, it means that's really how you think. I feel
Exactly,
like
yeah.
I feel like
He's-
it would almost be
he's
maybe
himself.
more problematic if you changed after having success.
Yeah,
If he's just always been
Yeah.
very confident, very funny, very kind guy. So
Yeah, exactly. Like that's like the one thing I admire the most about him is like he is all of those things I said. Like he's boisterous, he's just loud as hell, but he's never disrespectful. Like he is always just very kind, very generous.
I don't know. I don't know. He does come off as extremely disrespectful. I don't think maybe because they personally know Triff, they get to see that side of him. But he really does go like, "Oh, you're dog shit. You should never touch a card in your life. Like this is like we're not gonna rehab Triff's image, all right? Like this is not." This is absolutely not what Triff comes off as. And I'm not like, oh god, I just checked again and I'm staggered. This is like, this comes off as just like, oh, we know him personally. He's always been a cool guy or whatever. But yeah, I completely like you can't control how other people feel about you. That's the other thing. But I just don't feel that way about Triff in the way he acts.
Like, he's not someone that like no.
Am I dismantling Shining Flare? I mean he's a super poly target.
Show up to events and just like.
I think he rounds out
I'm not sure if Trick has a like he just puts in the work and like there's a reason why his guides are
the Moo Dragon Garura.
The time and the effort to make sure that they are good and like well thought out and reviewed by
I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, I think he compensates
Say you didn't
for
have
those
Star Wars
holes.
MD. Would you choose the TCG over Master Duel? And if so, why or why not?
I would still choose Master Duel because I would just okay. So you're saying like my teammates.
I say like,
Like, are
yeah,
you saying,
Let's say you didn't have a team, right? Let's say you
okay, then I would
qualify for
choose
Master
Master
Duel.
Duel and then pick them to be on the team.
I say like Master Duel. Okay, so why do you value Master Duel over TCG? Because like you mentioned, like you haven't won a TCG event. Like this is not your first time doing that, and this I think is your first opportunity to qualify for TCG Worlds because the last one you got second was during the COVID year and there wasn't Worlds.
If I hit a nickel for every time I top 4 nationals and I'm not going to TCG Worlds, I'd have 2 nickels, which is like more than most people would have for that.
Yeah. Okay, so why this time around when you have all that opportunity? Obviously you have good friends, but like is it more than that or is it just you like Enzo and Joey?
I mean, if in a vacuum, if you ask me, like if winning TCG Worlds or Master Worlds would mean more, I mean it's close. They're both obviously something that would mean something, but I would probably want to go TCG Worlds just because it feels a little bit more prestigious. Not to knock Master Duel. Of course, I wouldn't knock Master Duel. I love Master Duel, but it just means I feel like anyone who plays both games could probably tell you, and that's also like the reason Rayhan's asking the question, right? Like you kind of get the sense that the TCG OCG is like something special. The red jersey color is also sick. Like I would love a red jersey.
But it's not really format. You haven't done it yet. Like you've already won Master Worlds. You haven't won TCG.
I played TCG Worlds like main event in 2018.
Video volume for your ants. I think it's been that way.
Honestly, the reason it's not close is just like if I have the opportunity.
I keep forgetting. Here you go.
My friends with me to Worlds, it doesn't really compare even. It's
well, that sucks. Well, whatever.
There's no chance I'd ever go to TCG.
I don't put much effort in these streams anyway.
So if TCG
I'll remember it for next time, I guess.
Oh, I play the TCG for sure.
Okay.
Ryan is all
Ain't nobody saying no. No one says shit.
It is so much harder to qualify for TCG Worlds than Master Duel, and you could just qualify for Master Worlds again. Obviously, like shit can happen. But
You got
like,
ant chatters. I
like,
know.
I don't know what the percentage is. I would give you over 50% to qualify for Master Worlds next year if you wanted to. In
It's
TCG,
probably way over 50, honestly.
Yeah, okay. I mean, see, this is the cocky Ryan that I respect. Like this is.
I mean, there's like a difference between like arrogant and confident, you know?
No,
like,
I mean you are.
I think it's probably like over 90 at least.
Okay,
whatever Poly Market says.
I say the number that I had in my head was over 75, but I was just like, is that really that real? But yes, it probably is. So like, but even though like this is, I mean, it's theoretically for a lot of people is a once in a lifetime opportunity, right? Like there's a lot of names like Logan. This is his 5th opportunity qualifying for Worlds, and he finally got through. But like you just are gonna just continue with what you got. Obviously, like you kind of pre-sense it with Enzo and Joey. I'm not even sure how it would work at this point, like in terms of telling Konami hey, I'm going TCG. But is there like
there was never even like when I made top 4, a lot of people asked me like, hey, are you gonna do the TCG? Or like some of our mutual friends were like ribbing Enzo and Joey like, hey, you guys might have to watch out. But like the 3 of us didn't even talk about it. Like neither of them even asked. Like it was clear from the beginning. So
yeah. Okay, so I guess at this point the question is there ever a world where you go to TCG over Master Duel, assuming you qualify for both? No. Okay.
I'm never gonna. If I keep playing, which I think I probably will want to for a while, then I'm confident that I'll never miss Master Worlds.
Yeah. You know what? The tweet,
And
the official Master Duel
I didn't
tweet
actually
did
watch the interview
mention
live, but,
that.
like, Twitter kind of blew up with your response to Kangas.
Yeah, something like that.
It's very different seeing you exhibit that kind of confidence, which is 100% deserved. It's just, obviously I knew you as like a pretty much a child, and now you're here, like standing on top of the world in terms of your accomplishments and telling, hey, like it's not Striker Dog, I'm just the best.
I mean, I'm glad that most people seem to take it the way that I intended, which is obviously not to be an asshole.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that's just how I feel. Like it's not the deck. So.
Yeah, I mean, now to prove it, you have to win again next year with not Sky Striker, right? Like that's the only way to continue the streak.
I mean, oh my god, I actually get that so often. Maybe like maybe younger me would have cared. Like I actually get that a ton. Like people calling me like a Sky Striker 1 trick or whatever. But like I can literally play this well with anything I want. So like, and the results are also there for that.
I know, like every DC Cup you've won has been with not Striker, right? WCQ was with mostly Striker.
I mean, I've won with Dragon Link. I've won with Labyrinth. I've won with Mitsurazil. Like yeah.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure you've also played all those decks in the TCG as well.
No, I haven't played a Mitsurazil.
Mitsurazil? Okay.
No.
The Dragon Link one was hilarious because he was in like the server that we both met in called WAF. And that was like the WAF was like the Dragon Link server. Like that was the only thing we talked about for like
That's
2 years.
cool, yeah.
and Ryan didn't touch the deck like at all the entire time. Like he would like.
Oh yeah, I
contribute
wasn't
to
really one of the
conversation.
Dragon League players.
Yeah. It was like me, Gabriel Nets, Cormac, Max. Like it was just a bunch of me.
Our
and
buddy
Smokey and just, like,
really
one
is
person.
Deadly?
outage. Sad.
Deadly,
World's
yes.
competitor Deadly?
Yes, World's competitor Deadly D7, Sebastian Crowd. But yeah, it was just like, and then at some point after Dragon Link, like was actually even like that good. Like I think even I had dropped the deck at that point. This was like Unchained.
Yeah,
Dragon.
I'm still
Ryan's like,
staggered.
I'm just gonna
Holy
like learn
shit.
Dragon Link right now and just like tops the YCS like the next day, first time in the deck.
Oh, that was I learned Dragon League.
Was it
originally,
just something?
for
I don't
2023
know.
Worlds 'cause it was good
Could
in
it
format.
have been like
And then YCS Vancouver was also in August, so the same month. So I was
because
like,
of
I'll just play
increased
Dragon League again.
traffic?
Yeah, Dragon Link's one of my favorite decks, and yeah, I think it was very good at that Worlds. Right? It was like one of the better decks.
Is
Like,
Ryan in a dorm? Yeah, it does
Yeah,
look
Ryan
like
2 was
he's in a
basically tier
dorm.
0, so
Yeah.
Pride and Dragon League were like the 2 best decks after, at least in my opinion. Like I know some people.
Oh my god, this random. I just realized there's just this random column. Or is that? Yeah, it looks like there's just some random column in the middle of the room. There's no way this is an apartment.
Would argue for other decks, but
That's
Alrighty,
a
so
super
obviously,
full.
we're towards the end. I'm not gonna obviously ask you to reveal anything in terms of prep for Master Worlds because that's just not gonna happen.
All right,
So
there's
just,
a
like,
non-zero
give me some
chance
thoughts. What do
he's
you
in a
think the format looks
fraternity.
Like, do you feel like y'all are in a good position? Just like some generic, nothing too crazy thoughts.
I mean we're just working hard and we'll do our best to be composed and play well at the tournament. So can't really do anything else aside from that.
I have a question.
Thanks, yeah.
Having been to Master Duel Worlds in Japan, do you want to compare how that was versus when Master Duel Worlds was in America?
Good morning.
Oh, Master Worlds in America was great. That's where Jesse Ray and I won. So I can't complain about the experience. But I'm also really excited to go back to Japan because Japan is, it's probably especially for us who live in North America because going to Seattle is not vastly different from what we're used to going to events or just in general. But Japan's just like a completely different cultural experience. So
yeah, and the arena is really nice. The arena is really nice as well. I took a look at like where the Worlds event is being held.
it would be
really
so
nice.
cool to do well enough to like play on the stage. That would be super sick.
Yeah, that would be.
His
I had a
update.
question right off the bat, and I forgot it. Damn it. So sorry, just in reference to the Worlds format, what does it look like for TCG players that are unfamiliar? Like, is it pretty similar to TCG? Like, what is the decks that are perceived to be very good right now?
In Master Duel, like in terms of what decks are good.
Yeah.
I would say probably Cool Tune is still the best deck. Rotary is at 1, and they also hit Rico and Mix to 2. So the deck has some consistency issues, but it's still very strong. And then Dracotel is much better than in the TCG because Verte's out. Branded is fine.
But Gammon or
There's a
Gambit,
Rumble in
yeah.
Invoker. Radiant Typhoon Zoo is a deck, which is like a massive pain to deal with. Like you lose the barrel, and they summon Radpier, and then you're in for it. Because Saryuj is also legal, so they set up like Utopic Draco Future, then they Saryuj you, then they Radiant Typhoon combo, which is completely unbeatable. So, are there any other decks? There's like Fairy Tail, there's Mitsu cards, there's Rizal cards, there's no cross, but honestly, it's very diverse. There's a lot of different stuff you can play.
And I guess kind of last thing. So I've seen you like tweeting in Japanese over the course of like the past couple of years. Are you like how fluent are you in that now? Because it seems like something you spend a lot of time in.
Oh, definitely not fluent. I took it for 2 years in school, and it's something I'm also just studying for fun right now. I would like to become better at it, but
Because you did mention to me that you were going to stay.
The
over in
maintenance
Japan
is
for a little bit,
over.
or
It's
you can
just
stay
they're not
in
letting
yourself in the
people
event and
log
keep
in
that
all
over
at
there, or
once.
what's the
But
yeah, I'm
that's
honestly not
it's
sure
been
if I'll
going
have a
on
lot
for
of
so
opportunities
long.
to practice because I'm sure there will be some, but like as a tourist and then going around.
There's too many people showing
it's
up.
not like you're living there, going to school, like working a job. So I'll seek out opportunities to try to practice, but I'm not super confident that there will be a lot.
Okay.
Maybe that's a bit pessimistic.
I say if you were in Japan, I feel like it'd be a surprise if you didn't have opportunities, right? Like if you're not gonna have opportunities there, like where were they up here?
Yeah. I
Alright.
mean, I'm sure you can make opportunities for yourself no matter where you are, right? So.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like there'll be staff there.
Made
that are,
Blue Eyes
like,
Brandon
trying to
Draco
get
Tail,
in,
nice.
Probably would be appreciated on their part. Alright, Rahan, any final thoughts?
No, I'm like super excited to follow your Worlds journey and see how things go for you. Because there's a lot of people from NA that I'm really rooted for. I think NA.
the Worlds
I think
team
is
is great.
entirely. Yeah, Worlds team is
both
insane this year.
Master
Like,
and TCG, like this is the first year I think I know every single person going, like on some level. Which is no disrespect to anyone that's gone in the past. I just like personally have interacted with all of them, and that's
yeah, like I think this is
Yeah.
the strongest TCG lineup I've seen.
probably in terms of across the board. I think I would agree.
Well,
Across the board.
it might be rude for us to actually think about it, but it's
Think
definitely,
Ryan
it's definitely strong.
sleeps?
Like you can tell just by
Yeah,
looking
I mean,
Yes.
yeah. I'm not gonna go one by one and compare them, but yeah, like these are all people.
Hopefully,
that if they all won
because
Worlds
the
or
bet
won
is
or whatever, like,
made
same for Master, like,
that
you
this
think
is
you're
Ryan's
doing
bet.
Jesse's team.
The bottom
I guess
line.
last question: is there any friendly rivalry or actual rivalry between the two NA teams, or is it all just good love and friendship?
We're all friends. Obviously, we're gonna try to beat each other at Worlds, but at least I would say for me, I'm not really concerned with. And this is something I struggled with in the past. Maybe like I was worried like, oh, I'm scared of maybe this player, or I want to do better than this like X player at Worlds to prove something. But I honestly don't really care this year. Like I'll just focus on me and my teammates and hope that we perform well.
Perfect. Alrighty. Well, thank you very much for joining us, sir. I think that's it. Yeah.
That's it.
Alrighty. Best of luck to you at Worlds. I'll be following you very closely. I'll probably flip a coin between you and Jesse for who I pick. Just so there's no bias. But I'm very excited to see all of y'all perform on the biggest stage in the world. So best of luck to you, my friend. Thank everyone for joining, and we'll see you in the next one.
He draws a name.
Okay. Yeah, I can't get into the server. Not that I was planning on playing. I think I will call it today. I'll send you guys We got through a decent chunk of the backlog. Jesus, there's like 5 billion. Like, there's an LC video that's almost an hour and a half. Holy. This one's above an hour. This also is above an hour. I keep avoiding those. We'll eventually have to get to those. Oh, wait, I already finished this one. No wonder it felt so long. I don't know if I really want to watch, like... This one's outdated. And it's like... I just saw a new Dominus card. Nice. I think I'm just gonna make an executive order not watch this one. It's outdated. It's based on a ban list, like the Roseweb ban on TCG. Like, okay, we're gonna. I think I'm good. I think I need to watch those at least. That's like at least like 2 months ago. All right. Unfortunately, I didn't get to it in time though. Okay, this is probably more reasonable. We still have backlog, but there's still the cool tune. Okay, I didn't get to. Yeah. So I will send you guys who wants to. Oh, KBJ is on. KBJ's in? Fuck you. Fuck you. Just say fuck you, alright? Here's a streamer message. Fuck you. I'm still staggered. Really, Alright, here. Something like that. We can, Oh, wait, I fucked it up. I fucked up the... Okay, don't copy that message. But I'm not staggered? Yeah, but you can still say fuck you, alright. Okay, yeah. I'm so... Yeah, oh, you know what? Yeah, fuck you. There we go. Scuba chat. Scuba. I was hoping to play some Yu-Gi-Oh! Earlier, but whatever. Alright, say hi to Gay BJ. I don't know what I want to do later. Scuba chat, yeah, scuba chat. I don't know what I'll do later, but we'll resume the climb. So we have a few days to get Master 1 before Fusion Cup. Alright, bye-bye.